we've normally done before with the regular presentation you guys have seen before, but what I want to do after that is I have a bunch of different topics concerning SlowFlips that we've never actually addressed. And I guess I've addressed them one-on-one with you, but there's been situations where that have come up where somebody's purchased a property, for instance, it's going to closing, and then the day of closing, the attorney's asking them, for instance, I'm just going to make up a topic because I have a bunch of them, we need a copy of the insurance, and they'll say, I didn't know anything about insurance, and again, it's my own fault because I just assume you're going to be buying a house, you got to get insurance, but I never went over it with them, and then also I never went over what to tell the insurance company, because there's also been the issue, some people are like, I'm buying the house, but I'm going to sell it next week. Well, we are selling it, but we're selling it with owner financing. It's a regular rental policy. We're going to cover a bunch of stuff like that after the fact. So what I want to do first is just go over, again, recapping on SlowFlips, what exactly it is, what exactly we're doing with it. But then more importantly, I want to get into the details that have never been covered in the presentation. More and more things that have come up as people have been doing SlowFlips, as they're asking me questions, stuff that I've never covered, I've been writing down notes on them, so we're going to cover all of that. Does that make sense to everybody? Not too many of you guys in the room have SlowFlips. How many? I know you do. You're getting one now. You do. So how many people in the room are interested in getting SlowFlips? Okay, so pretty much everybody. That's why I was just checking on, because we have a bunch of people that have a lot of SlowFlips, and I'm looking around and they're not here. So you're there.
I got two now.
You closed on your second one already, right? Yeah. Yeah, I remember there was a title issue with the Suffolk one, right?
Yeah.
It's not dead though. I have a couple ideas, but.
Well, I told Jerry to tell her that if she finds that person, then the offer's good for 6 months. So.
There's other ways to do it. We'll discuss it offline, but there's other ways. So I told him, I said, well, we'll put it out there and we'll see what happens with it.
Okay.
So, first and foremost, we're going to go through our regular presentation that you guys have seen before, and I'm gonna. You guys have seen it, so I'm not going to spend too much time on everything. But first and foremost, the great rental myth. This is my personal opinion. There are people who still believe in regular rentals. There are people, I have friends, I just got back from a group in St. Louis that they're certain people there, they're all about regular rentals. They want to borrow 80 grand on a $100,000 house and make $200 a month for 30 years. I am so against it. I can't even tell you how against it I am. I'm absolutely against it. I personally believe in free and clear is the only way to go. How you doing? And so the great rental myth is basically what we've all been taught, which is buy a house, get a mortgage on it, pay on it for 30 years, make a tiny spread, and keep kicking up that money for the mortgage payment. And eventually, someday, as you know, Kevin and I have a company called Someday Properties, because we always would say, someday this is all going to be worth it. Someday this will all be worth it. And the reality is, 30 years is a long time, right? So my vision in my head, which I like to share with people because it helps to grasp what it is I'm saying, is that you buy a house for $100,000. Do you know how much you end up paying when you pay it off? 300, 350. How much did you say?
300,000.
300,000. And that's about the way it is. So I have this vision in my head, and I joke around and always say Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. I picture him at the top of the tall buildings. Every tall building in every city you ever go to is one of two things. It's either a banking company or an insurance company. That's how they make their money because of that. They're 300,000, so they loaned you the 100, and then you're running around every month doing your work so you can get a check so you can mail it up to them, and they're just sitting up there like this waiting on the check to come up. The air conditioner breaks, you fix it, but you still got to send the check. It's vacant, you have to pay the mortgage payment even though nothing's coming in. Tenants staying in the property and suing you, you still have to make the mortgage payment. So all they're doing is sitting at the top and collecting the money. So with that said, what we do with the SlowFlips kind of turns that all on its head. We're the ones at the top of the building. Does that make sense? We're the ones that are getting the check. We have tenants that either live in the property or more often than not, they're investors themselves who are doing the old plan. They're doing the plan that everyone else teaches, which is pay us for 30 years. But instead of them sending it up to them, they're sending it to us. Does that make sense? They have a tenant in there who's not paying, we still have to get paid. Their air conditioning unit got stolen, they have to deal with it, we still get paid. That's the whole plan, is that we just flipped it around and we're on the other side of that strategy. We're the receiving side. So there's our buddy, Mr. Burns. I always think of him often, when I'm getting them and when I'm sending them. So what is a slow flip? It's basically just the process of flipping a property as slowly as possible for the fastest possible accumulation of wealth. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but conventionally people buy a house, buy a rental, and it's a 30-year program. 30 years. With our program, it's 5 years. 5 years to some people still sounds like a lot because they're like, well, I want to be rich tomorrow. Well, guess what? It's not going to happen. 5 years is doable. When you start getting into it, it's amazing how fast 5 years pass. Chris, how long has it been on your first one so far?
1 year.
It's been a year already, so it's amazing. So I think you're 20% done already. It's amazing how fast time flies. And 5 years is nothing. 30 years is a long time. I can't stress that enough. 30 years is a long time, and that's the regular program that everyone sells you on. So there's two different ways of doing it. You guys know the way that I do it. Some people like to rehab the property and then sell it with long-term owner financing. I do it as is. So I have some friends that do rehab the property. They're under the belief that if they rehab the property first, that they're going to get a better quality tenant, that they're going to have somebody who stays longer term. And they're under that, and I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I disagree with it because I've had times where I put $10,000, $15,000 into a property, and 6 months later you get it back and everything you did is undone. And I decided back in 2011, was it 2011, when we said that's it, no more rehabs. We're not fixing anything anymore. Exactly the way we get it is exactly the way we put it out. We're not letting anyone, it was July to September in 2001. In QuickBooks, we spent over $250,000 just in repairs on houses. And that was in September where we were like, what do we have to do to not do any more repairs? Because we're just burning this money. And we haven't repaired anything since then. So that's completely up to you. Some of my friends do rehab and then sell them with long-term owner financing. I do them exactly as they sit. And a lot of you guys have been already in our properties. I've been on our properties on the bus tour, and you've seen the properties, the condition we put them out in. Some have been great, some of them not so great, but they all get gone. I've had one, and we're actually going to show you one that had complete fire damage inside. Burned up. We didn't do anything to it. We sold it to a contractor in that condition, and he renovated it. So we don't do anything to them, let somebody else have their value. My formula, you can vary depending on what you want to do and depending on your numbers, but if you're using our program, the formula that we use is $30,000 is the max we're able to pay because we do $30,000 loans. We borrow it at 12% interest on a 5-year amortized mortgage, which makes our payment $667.33. Now, if you use your own money, some people use their own money. They don't borrow and do the 5-year plan. Well, you can pay more than if you wanted to pay 35 and 40. If the numbers still work, you have the ability to. The reason I stick to 30 is because if you're borrowing the money on a 5-year amortization, it won't work. If you go to 35 or 40, you're going to be upside down every month. And even though it's only 5 years, even if you're only upside down $100, you're like, well, it's only $100. I can suck it up for 5 years. You can, but now you can't scale because if you get 2 or 3 or 5, you might be negative $500 or $1,000, and that's going to add up, and you're going to learn to hate SlowFlips real quick if you're negative. So I don't care that you don't make any money for the first 5 years, but I don't want you to be losing money. Everybody got that? That's why I try and cap it at 30. Now, if you buy a property for 35, say it's a really good deal, you want it, it's 35, you have the ability to put $5,000 into it and still borrow 30. Or if you're using your own money, you can put in, you can pay whatever price you want, as long as the numbers still work for you. $667.33 is our payment for 60 months. And again, 60 months sounds like a long time. It's not when you're comparing to 360 months, which is a conventional mortgage. Did everybody got that? Mm-hmm. 60 months, I know, people want it to be done by tomorrow, but just the idea, I've been doing this a long time, just the idea that we can pay off a house in 5 years is insane. We all, even the quick mortgages, the smart people would get 15-year mortgages. This is 5 years. 5 years and it's free and clear for the rest of your life. So once we buy it, effective immediately, and actually they're not even in the room. I was looking at some of them that just recently did deals. James is for instance. He did a deal, paid $22,000 for it the same day he closed on it. We got it sold at $89,000. So although that sounds great, he didn't get that $60,000. That would be awesome if he did, but he didn't get that 60, but he financed it at $60,000. He got $3,000 down and $875 a month. So one of the interesting things, so you say, okay, there's a $60,000 spread there, and you can say, well, that's not real. That's not real money, right? It's not real money. You kind of made it up. You bought it for 20 and sold it for 80. At 60 grand, it's kind of fake money, and you're right. But the interest that's being paid on that invented money, that is real. So you can't spend that 60 grand because you kind of made it up and it doesn't really exist. But you can spend the interest on that 60 grand because it's getting paid to you every month. Everybody got that? Mm-hmm. It's really hard to comprehend because I've had people tell me, they're like, you made up $500,000 in equity on these 10 houses, but it's not real. You can't just get that $500,000, and they're right. But the interest that's coming to me every month, which real interest on that $500,000, that you can spend. So it makes a huge difference. So we sell on an average 69 to 99,000. Most of mine is 89. I generally always start off 89,000, 3,000 down, 875 a month. Some houses I'll go a little bit lower, some houses will go higher. I had one just recently I bought for 22,000. The city assessment on it was 145, so I sold it for 145, and I get 1175 for that one. But my average is going to be 875 a month. 3,000 down, 875 a month. They pay you now, that 875, 975, 675, whatever your payment is, for 30 years. We're selling it the conventional way. We buy it our way, but we're selling it the way everybody's used to buying it. Does that make sense? Everybody's used to getting a 30-year mortgage. So let's talk about our buyers for a second, and I know I got some of the stuff I'm going to cover after, but our buyers are me prior to the bust. I was the ideal buyer back then. I would buy anything someone would own to finance me, I would buy. Didn't matter if it had equity, didn't matter. I would buy it. I can cash flow, I can put, because let me tell you how much sense it makes. If you put $3,000 down buying a property, and you could make, let's just use easy math and say you can make $100 a month, right? Well, that's $1,200. Let's just use even easier math. We'll say you put $2,400 down. You got $1,200 a month. You made a 50% return on your money. How do you turn that down? A 50% return on your money is sick good, right? And that's the way everybody thinks. But the reality is you and I both know that's not true. Even if you get $300 a month positive on a $3,000 investment, you'd be like, that's 100% return. You got it. How could you not do it? But it doesn't account for vacancy and repair, and that $300 a month is gone, and basically you're just working, I generally say for Mr. Burns for 30 years, but in this case, these people are working for me for 30 years, or you for 30 years, or whoever has the SlowFlips. They're working for us. They're dealing with the vacancy, they're dealing with the headache, they're dealing with the maintenance to send the check for 30 years. Everybody got that? Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's a huge, huge difference. I cannot stress enough. With no comparison, SlowFlips are my absolute favorite part of the entire business. I love going on appointments, I love everything else that we do, but SlowFlips are the one thing that every time when you guys buy one, that brings me the most happiness because you're that much closer to being free. You can do a deal and make 20 grand, and that's great, and you celebrate, and we're all happy about it. When you get 10 SlowFlips under your belt, you're basically just on a clock now. You're waiting out your 5 years, and you're free. 10 doesn't make you rich. We'll go over the numbers in a minute, but 10's gonna make you 60 grand a year before you get up in the morning. That's free. Again, it's not rich, you don't have a yacht and a jet and all this other stuff, but you're free. And you'd be surprised that freedom is mostly what people are looking for. So the average we make per property is $500 a month. $500 a month does not sound like a whole lot. So I said we average get $875, so why do I say 500?
At what point is the 500? Is that before?
Once it's paid off. Once it's paid off, we make an average of $500 a month. Even though we're collecting $875, I always say 500 for a couple reasons. One of the reasons is I pay the taxes and insurance. I do that on purpose because I used to let them pay, and what I found is they don't pay. So I actually have a program now where they pay for their own insurance, but I generally keep a policy anyway until my lenders are paid off. I do that for my own security to make sure that I know my lenders are covered. The second reason why I use 500 and not 625 is because it makes easy math. It makes easy math. So if in fact you're looking for $10,000 a month, the math is real easy. We know you need 20 SlowFlips. Does that make sense? You want $5,000 a month, we know you need 10. It makes it real easy math if you factor on 500. The reality is it always comes into over 500, but I'd rather use low math. I like to use low math and have you be happy with the outcome than use high math and be disappointed with it.
You gotta pay taxes on it too.
But that doesn't affect your income, but you're right. It doesn't affect the amount you make. So $875 for 360 months, which is what you're selling it for on a full-term mortgage, is going to be $315,000. So this house that you paid $22,000, $25,000, $31,000 for, whatever it may be, over here, Dennis. This house that you paid $30,000 for, you're in essence selling it with payments for $315,000 is what you get in the end. So now let's say you sold it at 89 and 3 years into it, the person wants to refi. You're not going to get your 315, right? You're going to end up now getting 80,000. That's okay. You only owe now 20 on it and you're going to get the 80, and what are you going to do with that money? You're going to buy 2 or 3 more. Does that make sense? So you're not going to get the 30, but that's okay. I've had people that are emotionally attached to their properties. And so what do? They say, well, I don't want to sell because this is a sale. They want to do regular rentals because they're like, well, what if the people buy it? What if they buy it? I don't want to do that. What if they buy it and I end up with no properties? What if they buy all my properties? I'm like, well, that's awesome if they buy them. You bought it for 30, sold it for 90. If they buy them, sell them all day long. Take that money and buy 3 more. For each one you sell, buy 3 more. Right? Make sense? Who cares? There are people, though, who are emotionally attached to their properties. They painted it, took care of it, they hug it and love it, and the fear of someone buying it stops them from doing this because they're afraid what happens if they actually come through and buy it. So this is an amortization schedule. You guys have seen this before. Everybody have a mortgage on their own house? You guys know how it looks. It's horrifying when you're on the payer side. This is one of our mortgages. They pay $875. $32.63 goes to the principal. So they paid $875, but they only paid down the house by $32. And this is not us doing any kind of magic. This is an amortization no different than the bank uses. This is the same exact stuff the bank uses. When you pay on your house you live in, the exact same thing applies. You borrowed $100,000, you make a $1,000 payment, and $100 goes to principal, or whatever the numbers are. It's crazy and it's evil genius simultaneously, but the reality is, it's evil genius, but this time we're on the collecting side. We're on the collecting side, because like even on my own house, you send in a payment and then you look at the statement and they're like, oh, you sent in X amount of thousands of dollars and then this much came off the balance. And it's crazy, but that's the way it works. So when we sell, it's the exact same thing, but we're the ones that are collecting all that interest. So this is month number 1 through 14. Here we have month number 120. So they borrowed $89,000 after paying on it for 10 years. They still owe $81,769. 10 years of making you payments. They started at 89. They still owe you $81,769. That's the genius of an amortization schedule. I mean, it's absolutely genius. I always wonder who came up with this in the beginning. I'm like, that's absolutely genius. They paid on it for 10 years. So what does it come out to? Like $11,000 a year for 10 years. They paid well over $100,000, and their balance went down by $7,000. Being on the collecting side of this is the place you want to be. Being on the payment side is the place you don't want to be, which is why we're so against having this long-term debt. So you guys we talk about this all the time. Remember your number, your freedom number, what number it is you need a month. Some people were as low as like $4,000 a month. Some people wanted $80,000 a month. The average is probably about $10,000 a month. Most people say on average $10,000 a month would set them free. When you take that number, we basically just divide it by the 500. So if you want $10,000 a month, you know you need 20. So Joey, who's not here, he's got 7. Andrew, how many does he have now? 7? 7. I think he's got his 8th contracted now, and it's only been 1 year because that's what he's focusing on. And it's amazing when that's what you're doing and that's all he does every day, how quick it builds. I mean, his goal was to get to 10 by the end of the year. If you can get to
online.
What's that?
He's watching online.
Oh, hey, how you doing, Joey? If you can get to 10 ever, I'm not even saying in a year, but ever, just get to 10. And again, I'm not talking about limousines and yachts and mansions, but 10 is still $60,000 a year without getting out of bed. That's the thing. When I'm talking these numbers, I'm not talking huge numbers where you're like, oh, well, I'm not talking about mansions and yachts in the Greek islands. $60,000 a year doesn't sound like a lot, I get that, but that's before you get up and do anything. That's before you wholesale a deal, before you flip anything, before you even get up, period. You can just 10 properties. Just 10 properties in 5 years. So I can't stress that enough. You don't need tons and tons of properties. Not to say don't buy them. When you get to 10, what are you going to work on? 11, 12, 13, 20. However, your initial goal is just get to 10. Just get to 10, and if you never get another one after the 10, that's enough for most people to be free. And I'm not saying 60 grand's a fortune, don't get me wrong. But if you can have 60 grand before you work, before you do anything, that's enough where most people can be free with that. So we're going to, a couple different things we do to automate. I know I'm running through this, but that's because I have other things I wanted to go over that we've never addressed. So a couple things to automate. Now, a lot of you guys have jobs. So if you have a job, first off, people are like, well, I can't manage this. I can't do all that because I have jobs. So we have a dozen different things we do to automate, but then we're going to get into more detail in a second with notes that I made for things to go over. So first and foremost, I do signs. How do we fill the properties? One of 3 ways. We do signs around the neighborhood, purposely look like garbage. They look like crap, misspelled words, horribly written, and I'll explain why in a second. The second way is Facebook Marketplace, and the third way is Craigslist. You can do the rest of the sites if you wanted to. There's an aggregator, you can put it on and be on Zillow and all the other sites, but typically you're going to get your people from Facebook, Craigslist, and signs. One of the things I like best about signs is people who are calling on your signs, they're already in that neighborhood. They know that neighborhood. So it's not an issue of somebody on Craigslist or Facebook sees it, and they're like, oh, that's a nice looking house, those numbers are great. Then as soon as they drive out there, they're thinking, no way I would ever live here. And now you just drove 30 minutes to go meet them. Does that make sense? But when it's a sign, they're already in the neighborhood. They already know that area. They know what they're working with. So these horrible looking signs. So I know I've told you guys before, I'll tell you again. So how that started was an accident. Years ago, my handwriting's horrible. You probably all know that already. And so when Kevin's with me, and his handwriting's horrible too, but a little less horrible than mine, normally I have him write out the signs because it's just a little bit less horrible than mine. Well, I was in Hampton, this house I still own on Kenneth Street, and I was by myself. And so while I was there, I was like, well, I'm here anyway, so I might as well put out some signs while I'm here. So I did it myself, reluctantly, because I never do it myself. And I put them out, and my phone rang off the hook, and it was like a day or two later, I got the property filled. I went back out there to meet the people, give them the keys, and then picked up my signs. Put them back in my office. Didn't think anything of it. Well, the guy that was working for me at the time comes in my office, probably a week later than that, and he's standing at my desk talking to me. He's standing in front, the signs are behind me, and he says, what's a CHEP house? And I'm like, excuse me? And he's like, what's a CHEP house? It was C-H-E-P. It was an accident. I was doing it, I didn't even think about it, I did it fast. So I looked back and I was like, oh God, I didn't even realize I spelled it wrong, right? And anyway, it dawned on me. I said, I wonder if that's why my phone was blowing up. And so I started testing it, making the signs look real nice, and then making them look like crap. The crap ones, 10 to 1, the amount of response you get. 10 to 1, making them look like crap. Because so many people are like, oh, I would never put out a sign looking that deplorable. Well, you may also never fill your property. So the reason is, after working with this for a while, it's become clear, our customer doesn't want to call the RE/MAX sign or the professional looking sign because A, they've already been turned down by 40 other companies. They know you're going to charge a $50 application fee and then turn them down. They know they're not going to be qualified. They're living in cash. They don't have pay stubs. All the other things that come with it. They don't want to call because they know what's going to happen. They're going to get rejected. They're going to pay for the privilege of getting rejected. When they see a sign like this, what are they thinking? That's a guy I can work with. That's a guy I can work with. And your phone rings off the hook. And it almost has become a challenge. Like the crappier the sign is, the better the response seems to be. But still have to be clear on certain things. Your phone number has to be clear. I like to have the down payment, the monthly payment. However, the wording, it absolutely, misspellings, scrunching in words. Sometimes I look at them and I almost laugh. I'm like, that's too bad we can't put that one out. I'm like, we'll try it. It's amazing. The signs work. So don't stress yourself on trying to make everything look perfect. Deal by text. Deal by text basically is a system that gives you separate phone numbers for every property. And so the way it works is you sign up with Deal by Text. It gives you a different phone number for every property, and every property then gets its own message. So the reason, okay, let me tell you how I started this. So it used to be I would run my own ad with my own phone number, but I'm busy, and what would happen is the phone would ring, and I'd keep answering until it was so annoying I would stop answering. And then I would get a bunch of messages, and then my plan was, well, when I have time, I'll call these people back. And then I would never call them back. And so it's not a good way to do business. So what happened is I learned about this system, and what I can do now is I put out a different phone number for every property, and in the voicemail for that property, I give them all the answers to the questions everybody asks. You know exactly what they ask. What's the address? How much is it a month? How much is the down payment? How long is the term? What kind of work does it need? Everything you know that they always ask, I say it all to them in the voicemail. Then I tell them, actually, I think it's on another slide, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Drive by the property, feel free to walk around the house, look in the windows, and then if this looks like the house you're interested in, then call me at, and I give my Google Voice number. So the only people who should be calling me already have been to the house, already know all the details, so I'm not getting 100 people calling me just asking me stupid questions. Does that make sense? Have you guys has anybody in the room ever run an ad for anything for sale on Craigslist or Facebook or anywhere? It's interesting to me. You can say, this chair is for sale for $50, right? And you know what they say when they call? How much is it? How much is it? Oh yeah, I'm calling about the chair you have for sale. How much is it? I'm like, well, the ad says for sale $50. Well, do you have any other chairs? Well, it says my only chair I have. And they read the ad and then ask you questions that's already answered in the ad. I used to get so annoyed that I was almost being a wise ass. People would ask me questions. They'd be like, how much is it down? And I'd be like, well, let me check the ad. Let me see. It says $3,000 down. And I would pretend like I'm reading the ad because they're asking me questions that are all written in the ad. But they just call like they don't even know why they're calling. They call because they know they're supposed to call, but they have no purpose of the call. And sometimes they would just call me and read the ad to me. They'd be like, I see you have a house and it's at 123 Main Street and it's 3,000 down. They'd say, and I see it needs some work, okay, so I'll think about it and I'll give you a call back. Okay, thank you for calling. And so this kind of eliminated all that. When I got with this system, it eliminated all that. My voicemail gives them all the details, and they only call me after. And the first thing I'll ask them after they did it, after they finally call the Google Voice number, have you been to the property? Because it's what it says. After you're at the property, then call me. And sometimes they'll be like, no, but I just wanted to. I'm like, go to the house, and then we'll talk. Because anything else is a waste of time. They might, once they see the area, have no interest whatsoever. So I want you to go to the property, and then we'll talk about it. Best investor sites, I think most of you guys have this already. These are the carrot sites. Most of you guys have it already. There's 3 sites you're able to get if you're on the $99 package. There's 3 different sites. We all use the We Buy House site. That's our main site. But it also gives you one for raising money. It gives you one for selling properties. It gives you one for rent to own. They have an owner finance one now, which I switched my rent to own one to an owner finance. They used to not have that. And so you can put all of your properties on there as well. So when they go to your, if they're offline, I leave them offline. So if they call from a sign, I don't send them to the internet. But if you got them from Facebook or Craigslist, you can put a link right in there where they can click it, see the pictures, the video, all the details, everything about it. So they're not calling you, and they can see absolutely everything. So showing system, this I told you a little bit about it already, but so I do this. Some people hate this. Some people absolutely hate it. I have no personal attachment, no emotional attachment with my houses. If you have an emotional attachment with your house, this is really hard to do, to let somebody in your house without you being there. So first and foremost, first thing you do when you get a house, put it on a lockbox. So always what I ask people when they say, oh, I just closed, I'm like, well, is it on a lockbox? That's the first thing you need to do is put it on a lockbox. After they've driven by, so remember, I already have the number, I already read them the message. After they've driven by, they call after they've driven by and said, okay, yeah, I already drove by, I'd like to see it. When are you available? I said, I'm available anytime, just give me a call an hour before you see it. I'm available anytime, I'm free. Yep, just give me a call an hour before you see it. So then they give you a call. They give you a call the next day. The reason I have them call an hour in advance is so that I know it'll be watching my phone and looking for that number. Because otherwise I could be talking with somebody and not answer, but I don't want someone to drive all the way to the house, be standing there on the porch, and now I don't answer. Does that make sense? So I want to make sure I know they're going so that I'm paying attention and looking for their call. When they call and say they're on their way, I said, yep, I should be able to make it, but if I can't make it, I have a neighbor with a key who can open up the door for you. Everybody got that? I do this on purpose so you don't be like, sure, I'll just give you the code, go in anytime you want, and then have to worry about, they're like, hey, he's giving me the code, let's bring the truck and get some appliances. So we don't never let them know until they're there that they're going to be given the code for it. When they call back and say that they're there, I say, I wasn't able to make it. My neighbor just stepped out and ran to the store, but since you're already there, let me go ahead and give you the code and you can let yourself in. Then I explain to them exactly what to do. I'll say the code is 2008, push the little black tab on the left down, the front of the box will fall forward, take the key out, open the door, put the key back in the box, spin the dial, call me when you're done. And so I walk them through opening it so that I make sure they're inside. Then they can take as long as they want walking around the house, and then I'm waiting for their call again. So I know they're in the house now, so I'm waiting on them. I'm waiting for their call. Then they can call me back when they're ready to leave. And then we talk about it. The first time I typically will meet people is in my office to do the paperwork. So when they've looked at the house, sometimes they'll leave, or they'll call me as they're leaving, and they'll be like, well, are you going to fix the hole in the ceiling? And I'm just like, nope, we're selling exactly as is. Oh, well, that's too much, I don't want it. Okay, well, thank you, have a nice day. Are you going to whatever, you know, and I can answer the questions for them. Or sometimes, what's the next step if I want to do it? Well, do you have the $3,000 down? Are you ready to do it right now? Well, I need you to text me your information, all their information so I can do the paperwork, and we'll meet at the office and we do it right then. The first time I meet them, everybody thinks this is insane. The first time I meet my new buyers is when they walk in the front door to the office. Paperwork's already ready when they get there, and we do it on the table of the office. I never meet them before. I don't have a bunch of showings. I don't have all kinds of crazy process with them. I meet them for the first time when they're there with the money to do the deal. So a question that's not up there I want to answer. On the move-in, this is only on the move-in, it has to be cash or certified funds. Once they're in, they can pay by check or any form you want to take. I don't accept cash once they're in. I do accept cash for move-in. And did I ever explain to you guys the reasons for that? So years ago, and this goes back probably 2004 or 5, I used to accept cash, and it was always great. I didn't mind it. I liked having the cash. But it was one year, on the 5th of the month is when everybody typically comes in and pays, right? So the 5th of the month, everybody's coming in to pay, and I probably had 30, 40, 50 people came in and paid, everybody in cash. And I walked in to the front where Stacy was, and she's got the money in her desk drawer, and it's just a stack of cash, probably $40, $50, $60,000, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. That, you know, the average take on a bank robbery is $2,000. The average take on a convenience store robbery where they kill the clerk is $50. And I'm like, what would they do to us if they knew we had $50,000 sitting in a desk drawer? We don't have any cameras, we have no security whatsoever, and that was the last day we accepted cash. So we told everybody from that day forward, no cash. You have to go, and when people would come in with cash, we would send them back out to 7-Eleven, get money orders, and come back with the money orders. So we don't accept any cash for the monthly payments. However, I will accept cash for the move-in, and the reason for that is it's one-off. I'm only meeting with one person. You know, it's only one person, so it's not a specific day. It's not a collection time. It's just one person coming in paying, and so it's a no big deal when they move in. But once they move in, we no longer accept cash. Everybody got that? So what about the condition? And I know we have spoken about this numerous times. A lot of you guys who were on the bus tour, not the last one, the one before, were actually in this next property. So my answer is always, and this is real important to remember because it's all in your wording. It's all in how you present things to people. My answer is always, you're lucky. So when somebody comes in and sees there's garbage everywhere, and they say, well, are you guys gonna clean that up? No, we're not. You're lucky we didn't do it yet, because once we do, then it's gonna be a down payment of probably be $5,000 or $6,000, but I know you can do it for a lot less than that. Or, yes?
Scott, let me interrupt you, but when the move in, do you ask them to make a deposit of $3,000 down and the first payment?
I do not.
You do not.
I do not. Some people do. I know people do, especially with lease options. He was asking, do we get the deposit and the first month? So I do, depending on what time of the month it is. If they were doing it at the beginning of the month, then yes, we would. If it's about the 15th or later, then no, we don't. Sometimes I would prorate it, depends on the person, but no, I don't always require it. Sometimes, when it gets toward the end and it's so small, I would do it as a bonus. We're gonna let you have the last 2 weeks for free or the last week for free, and I don't always prorate it. But if it was in the beginning of the month, then yeah, because I'd have people 5 days before the first and be like, oh, I want to give $3,000 and have the next month included, and I'm like, well, then it's $2,000 down. You know what I mean? So it doesn't work. So the condition, so I tell people, I'm going to show you some in a minute. There's no limit to the amount of condition that you will be shocked by, that people will still take it. Because most of our customers are either A, contractors, or B, investors who are going to hire contractors. That's our customer. If they're not a contractor or an investor, it doesn't make sense to do one of our deals. If you're a homeowner and you have to hire a contractor to do the work, you might as well buy a house that's already ready to move into. There's no value in it for you, right? There's only value if you can do the work yourself, or if you're an investor and you're looking to make the profit from it monthly. But there's no value in a homeowner who's going to move in and then hire somebody. So we don't worry about the condition. I've given it to them in all kinds of condition. There's a property right now, maybe if we're lucky when the bus tour comes around, it might be vacant, we might be able to get into. I bought for $17,000. I actually bought it from a public thing, from a wholesaler that put it out, and everybody was berating him, making fun of him. Oh, nobody's gonna buy it, and I called him, I was like, it's still available, he wanted 19, I got it for 17. I sold it the day I bought it for $59,000. It was in really bad shape though, so I gave the guy a deal on it. $59,000. He put $3,000 down, $875 a month. I went back maybe 2 weeks afterwards. I happened to be in the area. I drove by. The whole place is gutted. He's got new air conditioning. He's got crews working in there. New roof, new air conditioning, new siding. And I spoke to him just recently, and he says it's not done yet because he got called out on another job. And I'm hoping it's done and nobody's in before we do the bus tour, because I'd like to be able to go walk through it. It's amazing now. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful brand new house. I paid $17,000 for it. And he did all the work. And he's got 3 houses from us. He's got 3 right now from us, and he wants, that's it. He does all the work, so it's fantastic. So this is just showing, this one in particular was on 36th Street in Newport News. Kevin and I went there after the lady turned in the keys, and I was shocked and a little bit pissed with how much, there was no furniture, nobody ever moved into the place. You can see the whole time they were there, they were just using it as like a staging station for their newspaper delivery scam. And there was just papers piled up everywhere, newspapers piled everywhere. And while we were there, Kevin and I were even talking, and we were like, yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this as is. We're going to have to do something, because it's tons of papers in here. But like we always do, we're already there anyway, so we're like, we might as well stick out signs, we're here anyway. We had 2 people fighting over it, and one person crying because the other one got it. Because we always do first come, first serve. And the other person actually ended up in another house of ours on 18th Street, but actually crying and upset because the other person beat her to it. And it's in this condition. They cleaned it out. They did all the work to it. I mean, it's amazing. We saw this house afterwards, and it's all renovated. It's a beautiful, nice house, and they did all the work to it. So this is a video of a firehouse. So you guys know last November I bought that package with 24 houses in it. I did not go through all of them properly because most of them were occupied. And I knew the guy who was selling, so I took some for benefit of the doubt. Well, after we got possession, 2 of them had major fire damage in them. And I was a little mad. At first I was a lot mad, then I was a little mad, and then I said, you know what, if I throw these houses away, if I donate them to a church, just throw them away, I still got a good deal on the rest of them, right? I did the math. I said, listen, just pretend I throw these houses in the trash can, the rest of them it still equals a good deal. Maybe instead of 21 grand, I was at like 23 grand each. Still a good deal. But, like we always do, put up signs anyway, put up signs, run ads anyway, we'll see what happens. And in this condition, somebody took it, and it's all renovated now. I mean, it's like a new house now.
I'm at today, 1423 24th Street, Newport News, Virginia. We have a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath home for sale with owner financing. I'm going to show you a quick walkthrough of this home. As you see, this home had some fire damage to it, nothing to hide. There's a ceiling fan there, recliner. Like I said, this is your living room right here. It's nice red painted walls.
I couldn't believe he said that because it's half burned up.
Are you watching
This is
the video?
the 1 bedroom downstairs, 2 bedrooms upstairs, a half bath downstairs, a full
But
bath
look at this.
upstairs. So this is the bedroom downstairs. Like I said, it's going to need a lot of work. This is a contractor special. So as you see, this is the room where it's a lot of damage too. The window right here. Alright, so this is enough of this bedroom. Okay, this is the living room right here. It's a big open space with 2 windows. There's a lot of space in here. I'm going to continue on to the kitchen area. So we're going to walk down the hall as we bring to the kitchen. You have a nice window right here for match.
And that's the computer. So in that condition, as is, in that condition, 100% still got it gone. So he goes back, Joey goes back, he's been in touch with a bunch of these contractors, and to see the condition as they do it, and he videotapes, so it takes pictures for me, and it's like a new house. They've completely done everything. So he goes in, and the first time he went in, it was all, you can see studs and everything they're building, and you see piles of all the materials. There's drywall, they got the rolled up flooring, everything was already in there. They're making it into a brand new house. So you heard him say a contractor special. Is it a contractor special? We have 2 different ways we advertise them. We never advertise anything as move-in ready, even if it's in great shape. We never say that because then if something's wrong, they want to hold you accountable. You said it was move-in ready and X didn't work. So we either always say it's a handyman special or a contractor special. House like that clearly is a contractor special. Nobody's gonna, you know, some houses people can go and live in while they fix it up. Handyman special, you can get away with that. A house like that is a contractor special. Absolutely no chance anyone can do anything with that other than move into it. So I have 2 others on 18th Street that both were sold to a contractor that were both, I'm trying to find the right word, I'm gonna go with deplorable. One of them I paid $15,000 for, and it sat vacant. Well, I'll tell you a funny story. So I actually had 2 people, well, the same person give me money twice down on it in 1 year. It never was occupied. I owned it for a full year. I got $5,000 down originally. Then they got defaulted and subsequently moved, well, it never moved in. Subsequently, we got possession back. And then like 6 months later, they surfaced again. Oh, we still want to do it. Gave me another $5,000. So I got $10,000 back already on a house I paid $15,000 for, and then still never did anything, never made 1 payment. So then we put it out again, so it sat vacant over a year, this house sat vacant. Mind you, I got $10,000 back on my $15,000 investment, but it sat vacant for over a year. Finally, we got this other contractor who's got 2 houses. He bought 2 on the same block. I go by, and actually Joey's gone by and done pictures and video, and it's all new now. New roof, new windows, new siding. I haven't been inside, but you can only imagine if they're doing all that to the exterior, the inside's gonna be nice as well. And then at the end of the block, there's another one that when I bought it, it was another one I bought from that batch of houses. The only thing they told me, I believe Alex and Joey went by there, the only thing that they told me about it is it was raining inside the house. They said, well, we went there, this one's all screwed up, it's raining inside the house. I mean, it was just like the roof didn't do anything and it was raining out and it was raining inside. Well, this contractor took it, and every time I drive by, all I can see is fresh wood, fresh framing, fresh everything. They did the entire house. Now, I can't stress enough to keep in mind, the deed's in my name. I own the house. I own the house. I paid $22,000 for that one. I paid $15,000 for the other one. I sold them at $89,000, one at $69,000, I think, one at $89,000, and they're renovating it. They're making it into their house. Everybody got that? I can't stress it enough. SlowFlips are the most exciting thing to me, period, as far as real estate goes. Everything else we have to do, we have to make a living, we got to wholesale, rehab, whatever else you're interested in. However, SlowFlips are the greatest thing ever. They are the greatest thing ever, and they're what completely makes you free. So, a couple of things I want to cover that we never covered before. I made a list of them to myself. So, first off, how do you determine, okay, we'll start off with where to find them. Where do you find SlowFlips? So there's a couple different ways. SlowFlips are the one exception to the rule where you can potentially find SlowFlips on MLS. I don't like people to get caught up in it because MLS is a labyrinth and you can get caught up in there forever, but there are deals on MLS. You can find SlowFlips available on these places where I always say don't look, like Craigslist, like Facebook. There are deals out there on SlowFlips. SlowFlips you could get from your regular marketing. You'll know when you get it, and I'm going to go over in a second how do you know which ones would be a SlowFlip or not. But also, the other great place you can get SlowFlips, and some of the best ones, are from other wholesalers. Because besides the people in this room, most people have no use for these properties. So you got that? Most other investors have no use for these properties for two reasons. I call it real estate purgatory. Nobody wants them. The flippers have no use for them because there's no retail sales there. So there's no way a rehabber is going to buy it and renovate it and then they can't sell it. So it's worthless to them. Landlords don't want them because they're the worst possible rentals you could ever have in your life. The highest turnover, low rent, high turnover, high headache. So landlords don't want them. So who does want them? Nobody, except us. It works for the owner finance model. For SlowFlip model, it works. For flippers, for rehabbers, and for landlords, it doesn't work. So most investors that get them outside of our group can't get rid of them. They have no use for them. They advertise them, and advertisement, I'll watch sometimes, I get their emails, they start at 40 grand, it's 35 grand, it's 29 grand, 20, and then finally I'll call them. Because I know nobody, unless one of us is on the list, nobody wants these houses. And so we get them from other investors, is a great source from other investors. You can also get them from your regular marketing. And so the next question was, how do you determine if it's a SlowFlip or if you should wholesale it? So I'm going to give you my answer, and it doesn't mean this is what you have to do. My answer is I wholesale anything that I'm able to wholesale. If I buy a house for 20 and it's an awesome SlowFlip, but somebody wants to give me 30 for it, I'm going to take the 10 grand. But that's just me. So if I'm able to wholesale it, I wholesale it. Simple as that. If I can make 10 grand right now or wait 5 years to get paid, now mind you, I already have 112 of them. So if you don't have any, you may say, you know what, screw it, I want to start buying and holding them. But my personal opinion is I wholesale everything that I'm able to wholesale. It's the ones with no retail value and we're already at where we're able to sell them for that I keep. Does that make sense? Like even that batch I did, now I guess that's not entirely true because that batch I did the math on that batch that I ended up paying about $21,000 each for them. I could have wholesaled them if I wanted to. I probably could have wholesaled them even right within the group at $30,000 each. So you're thinking that's $180,000, a little over probably $200,000. I could have made if I wanted to wholesale them all, right? But to me, it was a great opportunity to get a whole bunch at one time, and I had to close on them all at once, and then I would have the closing cost on the buy and on the sell, and so it didn't make sense for me to do it. But typically, if I'm able to wholesale something, that's what I generally tell people when they're like, "Oh, I got this deal at 15 grand. What do you think I should do?" I say, "Well, if you can get 25 or 30 for it, I say you take the money, because you can always use that money then toward buying something, buying one. But if you can't, if it's not a wholesalable, then I say that you end up keeping it as a SlowFlip." So. Where should you buy? This is a great question, and people ask me all the time. How do I know? Is this a good one? Is it a bad one? My rule with this is simple, and again, this is just my rule, and everybody's going to be different, but my rule is I don't buy anywhere where I don't feel safe. And that is definitely a wide array of what some people feel safe or don't feel safe. Because I have in all kinds of neighborhoods. People are like, well, you buy there, and yes, I have in most neighborhoods, but even in bad neighborhoods, or what's technically considered a bad neighborhood, if I'm comfortable with the block, some certain streets, the same street, there's sections on that street where I don't want to be. But the other end of the block, even on the same street, I'm fine with. There's a now that section's not even like that anymore, but there was a section on 26th Street years ago. I got a house for $5,000. Did I ever tell you guys this story before? When Mike was working for me in Newport News. I got a house for $5,000. Mike, who was working for me at the time as a buyer, he contracted it. He told me all about it. And I'm like, $5,000, how do you go wrong, right? I was like, all right, contractor, let's do it. So then, were you with me when we went out there? So Kevin was with me. We went driving to go look at this house. We just contracted for $5,000, decided what to do with it. That little section right around where that house was so bad that we wouldn't stop the car. We were just like, just forget it, just go, right? You just get the hell out of here. So I ended up wholesaling it. I got it for $5,000. I wholesaled it to somebody else for $10,000. So I made $5,000 on it. It wasn't until about a year later, after this deal was long done and put to bed, when I was sitting with Mike, and he's like, if I tell you something, you promise you won't get mad? And I was like, what? And he's like, just promise you're not gonna get mad? And he's like, well, remember that house? And he started telling me about that house. He's like, I never went in it. He's like, he pulled up to go look at it, he says, and it was so bad that he drove off, and he still that's why he offered so low, the $5,000. He says, I never even saw the inside of it, because he didn't tell me that at the time. And so my point is this: if you're uncomfortable or unsafe, it doesn't matter how good the deal is. Because if you have $1 bazillion and you're dead, it doesn't much matter. So we looked at a duplex once in Huntersville, and I have properties in Huntersville and Lindenwood now, which used to be considered like a bad neighborhood. Yeah. But there still are sections that are like certain sections of certain streets that are still real bad, but most of the neighborhood's nice now. Kevin and I once went to look at a duplex, and again, I think it was like $5,000 or $7,000 a duplex. And I'm like, well, it's in an area we don't like, but for that price, let's go check it out. We got there, and again, I'm like, hit the gas, go. And but everybody's different. Some are where I have my houses. Even my 18th Street, I love 18th Street, right? Who was I just with recently? I was with Steve Gunther. And so he followed me. I just contracted another house now, which I close on Monday on 18th Street. So we were out in Newport News, and I said, hey, you want to come see this house? I got to go take a look at the inside. I just contracted it. And so in his eyes, 18th Street, you guys have been on 18th Street, right? Most of you have been there with me. We own like 14 houses on that street. To me, that's a really nice area. Steve was like, oh crap, man, we got to get out of here. To him, that was a really bad area. And that's one of my favorite areas. So everybody's different. The point I'm making is you make that decision for yourself, where you feel comfortable, where you're not scared. Not that you got to move in there, but you're still going to have to go from time to time. So you don't want to go to a place where you don't feel safe. And everybody's threshold for that is different. There was a time where I wouldn't buy anything outside of Virginia Beach. 1994 to 2000, I didn't buy anything outside of Virginia Beach because I had moved here in 92. I didn't know the area, and I was like, well, I don't know Norfolk, Portsmouth, anything. And then I slowly started going into other areas. And then there was a time where I was like, okay, no Prentice, no Brighton, no Lindenwood, no Huntersville. Now I have in all those neighborhoods, and they're fine. I have zero issue. What's that?
Craddock.
There was time when people told me Craddock. They were like, don't go to Craddock. There's all this gangs and all this bad stuff. Craddock's one of my favorite neighborhoods now in Portsmouth. Craddock's one of my favorite neighborhoods. But for years, everybody told me don't go to Craddock. It's so bad and it's such a rough area. And I don't know if it was or wasn't. I regret all that buying opportunities I missed because I didn't buy there because everybody told me it's such a bad neighborhood. So my short answer on that is it's completely up to you, but you judge yourself on where you feel comfortable. Because if you don't feel safe, you're not going to want to own something there. So there's other people that teach something completely different, and I highly disagree with what they teach, which is there's people who teach I would never buy any house that I wouldn't live in. Well, let me tell you, I wouldn't live in just about any of the houses I own. I have one house that I used to live in that I still have, that I would live in, maybe one or two others, but for the most part, I wouldn't live in any of the houses I own. So again, I've been to seminars and trainings where that's their rule, is I would never buy a house I wouldn't live in, and I'm like, okay, well, we're in two different businesses, so that's completely up to you. So determine if you should buy, okay, what do you do after you get the contract? So these are some things that I missed out on when we first went over this stuff, so I just want to touch on it for you. First thing you do when you get the contract, if I'm getting the funding for you, is let me know. Obviously, first things first, let me know. We'll talk about funding in a minute. Right now, we still have plenty of funding available, and I got a new lender just recently. I know we were talking about it just this morning. However, I keep talking to you guys about raising more money, and the reason is we're not out by any stretch. We still have plenty, but I know that if we don't stay on it, we will run out. If we don't stay on finding new lenders, because even if each of you just bought one house, I'm just trying to do quick math, but it's probably $700,000 just in this room, just if you bought one house. And how many houses do each of you want? 10. Well, that's $7 million. We don't have $7 million available right now. So What we have available is enough. If you guys all get houses in this next couple months, we have enough for it, but we got to constantly be raising new money. So with that said, and I'm not going to get into a whole raising money thing right now, you guys know the process with raising money. However, if you come across somebody that's even remotely interested in it, even if you don't want to speak to them about it, then set me up with them. Set me up and we'll all meet together and just go over the process with them. The easiest way I found for somebody to feel more comfortable in it is to let them speak to our existing lenders. We have lenders that have been doing SlowFlips with us since 2011. And I've spoken with them. Would you mind speaking to new people? And absolutely not. So they have no problem with it. So if you have lenders that you think might be interested, let me know and I will meet with them. And the best testimonial we can ever give is somebody who's already been doing it for a while. Like we have one guy, most of his houses have already been paid off. He still has a bunch out with us, but I mean, he started in 2011. So 2016, everything he did in 2011 was paid off. So in the beginning, they may not trust. Talk to somebody who's already been doing it, it makes it real easy. So anyway, we have money right now, but I want to constantly raise more money because we're going to need it. As you guys start ramping up and we get more, if 10 of you call in 1 second and they're like, okay, well that's 300 grand. If you guys buy a second house, okay, we're at 600 grand. It's going to add really quick since there's so many of you and everybody wants to get them. So it's something to keep in mind as you come up with it. Insurance on SlowFlips. This is another one I kind of dropped the ball and never discussed with you guys. So do you get insurance on them? Actually, you just asked the question the other day, Renee, right? So you paid for yours, so you didn't have a lender. So when I have a lender, I always have my own policy, even though I don't have to, just to make sure my lender is safe. If you pay for them, it's up to you.
If you're asking the buyer to get an insurance policy, why don't you just have an endorsement to you?
And we do. On the buyer, I'm going to cover that in a second. So I do my own policy while I still have a lender. I still make my tenants. In the paperwork, it says the tenants have to get their own policy. And they have us on as additional insured. And they have our lender on as additional insured. However, constantly, people we're dealing with, constantly we're getting postcards in the mail saying that their policy has lapsed. Their policy has lapsed. And they pay and we send them you're in violation of your contract and you have to, get your policy active. But it doesn't change the fact that in between, there's no insurance. And so I keep a policy until it's paid off. Once it's paid off, then I'm a gambler and I'll gamble. But while I still have a lender involved, I don't want to gamble with their money. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's completely up to you. My personal opinion is I like to have insurance on it. If you're not going to have insurance, at least have a liability policy. You can have an umbrella liability policy. So that's to make sure that if the house burns down and kills somebody, they're not suing you. Even if the house didn't get rebuilt, that's a separate issue, but you don't want to be sued. You know what I mean? You don't want to be sued yourself. So I would still have an umbrella policy if you're not going to have your own insurance, just for liability. Does that make sense?
How much insurance do you have?
So for an umbrella policy, $2 million, but I have a lot of properties. I don't think you need to have that much. It's very inexpensive. And most of it, your regular policies have it all covered in there. The reason I do that, I like to have the umbrellas, because I have people that have their own policy, but they're constantly people lapsing, and you're sending them letters, and if something happens in the interim, you know what they're going to say. Insurance companies, rule number one, what does insurance companies do? Deny the claim. Whatever the claim is. Rule number one, deny the claim, and then make you fight it. So, not to get into the whole insurance topic, but I'm going to tell you since you opened it up. I have only...
You didn't answer the question. How much do you need, not the umbrella, but how much insurance do you need on this specific SlowFlip?
Oh, okay. So, I'm sorry. I didn't know that's what you meant by it. So that's a great question. And what's that?
Cover your mortgage.
To cover your mortgage. Well, I generally go double. I'll go $60,000 on it. So I just recently canceled a policy because I got it was expensive, and then when I started reading it, it's on 18th Street, a house I paid $25,000 for. He had me insured at $170,000. Well, there's no chance if the house burned to the ground. There's no chance the insurance company's giving me $170,000 anyway. And so I was mad, and I ended up getting insured with another company, and I insured it at $60,000. And they're like, yeah, but that might not even cover to rebuild. It might not, but 60 I'm fine with. I'm still good, regardless whether I rebuild the house. I'll probably just take the 60 and sell the lot. I'm fine with it, and it makes your insurance a lot cheaper. But you can insure for any amount you want. You can insure just enough to cover the lender if you want. It gets to a point where it's marginally difference in the price from going to 30, 50, 60 grand. It's going to 170 was a lot more. It went from like $1,200 to $625. So, moving it down to 60, so it was a big difference. Insurance story I was going to tell you about. God, I don't remember what year this was. This has to have been 2003 or 4. It was a long time ago. So I've only had a couple insurance claims in my life. This was my first one, and it was a fire in Ahoy Acres in Chesapeake. So, and this is unrelated to SlowFlips, but while we're talking about insurance, I'll tell you. So I had all my insurances through one company. It was Farmers Insurance back then, and I had rehabbed this house. This house was a full rehab, getting ready to go back on the market. My contractor calls me in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning or so. She was actually going to deliver the appliances. That was the last thing to be done before we could put it on the market. She calls me and she's like, what's going on? You know, what happened? I said, what are you talking about? She's like, the fire. And I said, what fire? She's like, the house is gone. And I'm like, what do you mean gone? You know, and she's like, it's gone. The house is ggone. And so I'm like, all right, I'm on my way. So I start driving out there. And while I'm driving, I call my insurance agent. And her name was Eunice. And I remember I was like, Eunice, this house, and I forgot that it was on, I forgot the name of it, whatever. Rollock Road was the name of the street. Anyway, so I said, I just want to check and make sure I have a policy on, I think it was 1701 Rollock Road. I don't know why I remember that. Anyway, so she's like, hang on, what's going on? I said, I was just told there's a fire. I just want to make sure I have a claim. So I'm freaking out now, and I'm on the phone with her, getting ready to go through the tunnel, and she's like, oh yeah, you're covered. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You're covered. We have a policy. Everything's good. So I'm like, okay, good. So I get to the house. The house is gone. Like, it burned up to nothing. The house is gone. So I'm like, all right, well, you know, good. I have insurance, so that's something. And so anyway, so then they send out the fire investigators, and I met them out there, and they do their whatever it is they do. And then I don't hear from anybody. And a couple weeks go by, and then I'm waiting on my check. I'm thinking, okay, I should get a check for $170,000 or however it works. I don't really know. And I'm waiting on my check. Finally, I get an envelope from Farmers Insurance, and it's a check. And I'm like, oh, it's here, great. I open it up, and it was like $600. And it was a refund of premium. And there was a letter saying, had we known this house had previous fires, we never would have insured it. Here's your $600 that you paid for your premium back. Previous fires prior to me owning it. I'm like, what does that have to do with me? You know, it was prior to me owning it. They I guess when they met with the fire marshal, the marshals probably said, oh, we've been out here before, but it was prior to me owning it. So I ended up having to sue them, and we ended up going to court, and I won. But again, did I really win? I ended up whole, meaning I got back what I had paid, everything I had into it, I got back. But I didn't get back what I should have got. So the house was worth like $170. I had like $105 into it. After everything, including selling the lot, I got back about my $105. But that's really not winning. But I still was at least made whole. But I lost. Nevertheless, that's been my experience with insurance. So my rule number one with insurance is always have it, but I never make a claim. I never ever make a claim, unless it's something like that. And I've had a couple fires in my life, and I never make claims on them. I'm just going back to my notes.
Scott, we just tried to get insurance on this house, and they said they don't insure that area.
That area?
Yep, that address.
I've never heard of such a thing. What, dude, you going through one of the big boxes, I presume?
State Farm.
Yeah, I would go through a broker then, because they cover every insurance company.
Okay.
So while we're talking about insurance, let me tell you something else that I've never fully explained to people, and it gets screwed up sometimes. So when you're getting insurance, you don't tell them that you plan on selling it with owner financing, because they don't want to give you a landlord policy then. They want to give you basically a temporary loan, a construction insurance policy. If you tell them, no, they don't want to insure you basically. If you're like, oh, I'm only going to have it for 3 weeks. You're not going to have it for 3 weeks. You're going to have it long term. So the way it gets worded is it's just a regular landlord policy. You're getting a regular landlord policy. I have messed up by not telling you guys that, and people call their insurance company and they say, oh no, I bought this house, but I'm going to be selling it in the next couple weeks. But what you mean is you're selling it with owner financing, which to them is still a rental. Does that make sense to everybody? So when you tell them that, it's still a rental. So they're going to ask you questions about the house. Who just recently went through this? Insurance probably. So they're going to ask you questions. How old is the roof? How old is the air conditioner? How old is the whatever part of the house? You don't know, you just bought the house, right? And so I tell them exactly that. Don't ever lie, because if you lie, it'll come back and they'll deny your claim saying you said the roof was 2 years old, and we can see it's 24 years old. So I never lie. I strictly tell them I have no idea. I just bought the house. Sometimes I'll even say I haven't even seen it. I haven't even seen it. I don't know. I don't know, because I don't want to tell them something and then they're going to use that against me. If there's a claim, they're going to say, oh, you said the air conditioner was X, but really we don't know. We just bought the house. So I tell them exactly that. I say, I don't know anything about it.
They went and looked on MLS and told us the roof has to be fixed, all these things had to be done.
Right. So she's saying that they're telling work has to be done to it. First of all, MLS is the stupidest thing in the world, because that doesn't show the pictures of it today. The whole house can be renovated. That picture's still going to show. But on top of that, whenever I have a company that says, oh, you have to fix this and this and this, or else we're going to cancel your policy, I tell my broker, I say, well, I need a new policy. That's it. I tell them every time. I say, well, I need a new policy, because I'm not going to get into the fixing game, and I have a tenant buyer in there who's responsible for the house, so I'm not going to go in and start doing work to it, ever. If the insurance company, sometimes they will, they'll be like, oh, you need to put up a handrail, or you need to fix this. I'll send a letter to my tenant, although I don't enforce it, but I'll also tell my agent that if they're going to cancel me, then, find me another. Usually you get a broker. State Farm can only sell to State Farm. But when you get a broker, they have 40, 50 different companies they can sell through. So if one declines you, then they just sell you on to the next one. So, yes?
What do you do about lead paint inspections?
So lead paint inspections, well, there's a questionable area because technically on a sale, you have to have the disclosures. On a sale, we're not technically a sale, so you can do them. I know Alex has just recently started doing them. I generally have not done the disclosures, but what could it hurt to do them? What could it hurt to do them? He's been setting it up now with a folder with all of them in it and having them sign it. So that again, it's a sale for them, so they feel more like a homeowner, and it's a sale. It's not something that I did in the past. It's something we're just moving to do right now. I know Sal was always doing it, and he was big into having all his disclosures and everything signed with everybody. So that's completely up to you. It's completely up to you. However, you're better off. It's better to have it, not need it, than need it, and not have it.
Okay, so now, and this is off insurance, but if it's not a sale, do they get to use this on their tax return?
Great question. So she's asking, do they get to use this on their tax return? So the answer is yes and yes. So most of mine don't. I think I only have like 3 out of 112 that actually file a return using their deduction. So people say, well, if they get the deduction, then I'm going to lose my deduction, right? But that's wrong. You both get the deduction. They're deducting the interest that they pay, and you're deducting the interest that you pay. Because I remember when somebody was telling me this, and then I spoke with my CPA about it, and she's like, no, it's not a one-person deduction. We all deduct everything that we pay. Every expense, you deduct your business expenses, I deduct my business expenses. Somebody else is deducting it. The difference is we're deducting it as a business expense, and they're deducting it as a homeowner's deduction. So it's the same exact thing. They're deducting the interest they pay, we deduct the interest we pay.
So that means that then you have to send in whatever the form is.
So you're talking about the 1099 they get, it's not a 1099, yeah, 1098, right. So I don't send them it. What I do is when I give them the amortization schedule, we circle at the end of each year, it shows them how much interest they paid for the year. And I let them know it's actually in my paperwork that they're not going to get a 1098 at the end of the year, but we're giving them the interest amount right now up front.
Okay, so how do they prove it on their tax?
It may not be an issue because the way the tax laws are now, the deductions are so high, your interest costs really won't come into effect.
Right, because now they just changed it 2 years ago.
But isn't it after 2 or 3 years or something like that, you still tell them what it is because it adds up or something like that?
The new law now is they're giving you automated deductions up to a big amount, and it's only if you exceed that amount you file anything. Other than that, you're automatically getting those deductions.
Okay.
So it made it easier on most people.
Okay.
What a question? Insurance? We have any more insurance questions? All right, insurance flows. Okay, so filling them. We went over everything that we do to fill them, right? Craigslist, Facebook, signs. One thing we didn't discuss, which is something that we primarily do, and I call them headhunters, but really it's just basically people working commission only to sell your stuff. And so like Alex does it, Joey does it, Mike Brown does it. Anybody could do it. I tell people, I've had a few people meet with me and say, well, I want to do it. And I'm like, well, you can, but, and this is nothing about being sexist. I've had women talk to me and I said, well, I wouldn't send my wife there on her own, and I don't feel good about sending you there on your own. I wouldn't stop anybody if they wanted to, but it's one of those things, going to the properties constantly and filling them. So is it worth it to spend? The way we pay them is we give them 50% of the down payment. So if it's $3,000 down and they fill the property for us, we give them $1,500. They get to keep 50% of the down payment. My personal opinion, it is 1,000% worth it. Because while you're at your job or you're swimming in your pool, there's a team of people working on filling your properties. Always, every day. There's ads going out, there's signs going out, there's people, there's showings. And the only text that you get is, I got somebody who wants 123 Main Street, when you're free to do the paperwork. Or they'll do the paperwork for you. So, completely up to you. I have some people that are like, nope, I don't want to use them. I want to save the $1,500 or whatever it is down. And you can do that. Generally, they only do it one time, because what happens is the money you saved, you lost now in paying it being vacant for 2 months and 3 months instead of it just getting filled. Does that make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. So it's completely up to you. I'm a huge fan of having people working for it because, and okay, a couple other things. I never use one person. So if you decide you want to go this route, I always make sure at minimum 2 people are working on it, preferably 3. The reason for that is if only one person's filling all your properties, as soon as you have a vacant unit, it's money in the bank to them. If they fill it this week, next month, 6 months from now, they're getting that money. If they know there's someone else working on filling it, if that other person fills it, they get nothing. So it makes it more of a critical moment for them if in fact you have more than one person working on it. Everybody got that? And you can always just call us and we have people that do it. So if you get a vacant property, just let us know and we'll work on getting it filled for you.
What percentage of your tenants stay in the whole 5 years?
So the whole 5 years, so I don't know about the whole 5 years. I've had several that basically paid off the entire house. My longest one now is about 12 years. But on average, we probably only do maybe 5 or 6 evictions per year. Probably not even that many. However, that doesn't mean we don't file. Probably every month we probably file on 6 or 7 or 8 every month. But 99% of the time, before court, they pay. So, but very rarely do we actually ever evict anybody. We file all the time though. And now that you mentioned it, I'm going to go off topic and talk about this as well. For those of you that have SlowFlips, and I know most of you aren't even here, but for the ones who are going to get SlowFlips, this is something that's critically important. You need to be extremely strict on your collections. Meaning, payments are due on the 1st, they go late after the 5th, on the 6th you send out your 5-day letter, your late notice. Everybody got that? Mm-hmm. And on the 12th, you file. Even if they say, well, I'm going to have it on Friday. Well, don't worry, as soon as you pay, I'll cancel it. Yeah, but the check's on its way. Okay, no problem. As soon as I receive it, I'll cancel it. But you have to file because what will happen is they will string you along as long as you possibly can. But the problem is you're screwing them by letting them string you along. And let me explain to you what I mean. If a tenant, use easy numbers, say they owe you $1,000. And they suckered you into, oh, I'm just waiting to get paid. I'm waiting on an insurance claim. My uncle's sending me money, whatever. And now you hit a second month. And it's $2,000. Now, what do you think? Well, I don't want to evict them. I'm going to lose that $2,000. So you're trying to work with them, and they give you $200, and you're trying to work with them. Now you hit $3,000, and it happens quick. I mean, all of a sudden, now they're so far behind. Well, let me tell you, you kind of screwed them because now they can't pay even if they wanted to. They've never even seen that much money, let alone be able to come up with it, and you made it now so it's cheaper for them to move. You want to keep it so it's cheaper to stay, and the only way to do that is to file on time. Once you start extending it, you made it cheaper for them to leave you. You made it cheaper now for them to go find a new place. If it's $3,000 and they can move it to another place with 700 down and 700, first and last month at 700 each, it's cheaper for them to leave. They might find a nicer house and it's cheaper. So you got to keep it so it's low, and the only way to do that is to file on time. 1st of the month it's due, 5th of the month it goes late, charge the late fees. Let me tell you something about charging the late fees, and I've never had this happen to me, but I've been warned. You have to charge everybody the late fees, not just the people who you think are bad or scamming, or you like that guy so you're going to waive the late fee. If you do that, and it was to come out, it could be discrimination. You didn't charge Lola a late fee, but you charged me a late fee, and you're both on the same paperwork, same everything, and somebody can say that you basically discriminated. How come you only charge him a late fee, you didn't charge me a late fee? So you have everybody across the board has to get the fees. And on the 12th, you have to file because it starts the clock ticking. I will cancel, 1 second, Chris. I will cancel an eviction 100% of the time. I don't want the property back. I don't want the property vacant. But I file 100% of the time because once you file, there's no more stories. You can tell me anything you want. That's perfect. I agree. I completely agree with you. As long as it's here by the date, no problem. We'll cancel it. As long as it's here by the court date, we'll cancel it. No problem. No stories matter anymore because the clock is ticking.
You charge the fees?
We charge
the fees that cost you to file?
Yes, so, and the bonus fee. So we'll talk about that in one. Actually, I'll tell you now. So he asked about the fees we charge. So it was $38. I think it just went up to $48 is the court cost. So we charge them that. We charge them a 10% late fee, but we also charge them a $95 administrative fee. And this is something I learned at a seminar I went to probably 15 years ago. We probably make $30,000 a year from this one fee. We charge a $95 administrative fee when we have to file for court on them. We typically would only charge it once, because once we go to court and have possession, even if they pay, we'll stop the eviction, but that possession was good for 12 months. You don't have to go back to court. Just July of this year now, they changed the law to where the possession is only good for 6 months. So again, they think they're doing the tenant a favor, they're not, because now we have to file again, which means they're going to get another $95 administrative fee. But nevertheless, so yeah, we charge them that fee, a late fee, and the court cost. Chris, what was your question?
when we had a rental property, we didn't charge the late fee once or twice, just trying to be nice working with them, and then we couldn't charge it, because, well, you set a precedent that you're not charging the late fee.
So speaking of a precedent, I'll tell you something I did years ago that I learned the hard way. It was a stupid thing I ever did. I needed the money, mind you. So I had a tenant, and I'm like, oh, I'll call them, and they say, oh, I have the money. If you want to come get it, I don't have anywhere to get there, and I need the money. So next thing I know, I go and pick it up. Then the next month, they're like, well, your money's here. Your money's here if you want it. I needed the money, so I go and pick it up. So then, when they don't pay, you call them on the 12th or 15th, whatever it is, where's the pay? It's been here all month. You never came. And it becomes now it's your job to pick it up. So, and I did this with a lot of people. It was a huge mistake. So we had to, at one point, that's when I changed the name of my company to get my name out of it. And I said, well, I'm no longer the owner of the company, and this is new policy, and Stacy was in charge, and I had to get myself out of it because they were taking advantage of me. They were like, no, the money's here, you didn't come. And I'll never forget this little girl on the porch, and it's certain things stick in your head when I remember she goes, Dad, the rent man's here. And I was like, oh God, I'm the rent man. And I remember she's like, Dad, the rent man's here. So, yep, I'm the rent man.
Scott.
Yes.
What's your take on getting judgments on people if they
So he's saying, what about when people don't pay and you go to court and you get judgments against them? So for years, I just let it go. I would get a judgment, but I never collected anything. So, everybody's like, oh, well, if they don't pay, I'm gonna be able to collect this and that. Guess what a judgment is? It's worthless. It's a judge saying that you owe that money. It doesn't mean you get $1. It doesn't mean the person doesn't have a job on the books and you don't have a collection company and they don't own anything. All you get is a nice piece of paper saying someone owes you money. It means nothing. However, I started recently, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, sending all of my judgments to an attorney for collections, only because he did a deal with me where I don't pay him anything unless they collect. And so when I collect, I'll get $1,500, and then he takes out his third plus all the fees for all the other ones, and they'll end up sending me $300 out of the $1,500 they collected. But I don't care because it's a bonus. Whatever they get, I get. So is it worth it to do? Absolutely. Why let it go? They owe you the money. You should collect it. Yes.
Same rental house, people moved out, and we had a judgment. Didn't hear anything for like 5 years, and then they wanted to buy a house.
And then you hear from them.
They called us, how much do we owe you?
Yep. And when they're in a situation like that, that's when you add on all the associated fees, interest, everything, because they have no choice. They have to pay it off. Every now and then we'll get one of those calls, and I'm like, I don't even know that name. And Stacy will look it up, and she'll be like, oh, that was from whenever, 1998. It doesn't matter. I mean, some long time ago. And it's just hanging out there. And at some point, we hope if they get their lives together, they're going to have to pay it and make things right. So, okay, where was I? Let me go back to where I was at. And I would let them pay, late notice, evictions. So, okay, so if they don't pay, 1st, 5th, 6th, we send the late notice, 12th, we file. Me personally, I will cancel an eviction all the way up to the actual eviction and even further. I've had situations, and I'm going to tell you, because Stacey's kind of funny sometimes with people. So I've had times where it's Wednesday's the eviction, let's say. They're like the Wednesday at noon is the scheduled eviction, but they're like, but I can pay on Friday when I get paid. And you know what she tells them? Well, I would pack a bag if I was you. And we don't kick them out though, mind you. The sheriff will kick them out, but we will let them come back in on Friday. If they pay up all the money they're behind, again, we don't want the house. We don't want to kick them out. We just want to have them on time and get their money collected. But we have to stick with the eviction. You cannot change it. You can't be wavering on it because it's such a pain in the butt going through the process that if you call the courts and be like, oh, the lady says she'll have it Friday, guess what? You're looking at another 3 weeks. You're looking at another 3 weeks. Just because you wanted 2 more days, they're like, well, you're not getting on the schedule in 2 days. We'll see you in 3 weeks when it works for us. And so it's got to stick with it. So when someone calls and tells Stacy that, she tells them every time, she's like, well, pack a bag, and on Friday when you come in with the money, we'll give you the new key. And that's it. Well, the locks will be changed, and we'll give you the new key when you come in and pay, plus the locksmith fee, plus the eviction course. And we have that happen a lot, and that's just part of it. They pay. We don't want, I can't stress this enough to people, we don't want the property vacant, we don't want the property back. We're just a bank. And I tell people that way. I say, we're just a bank. We're not landlords. We're not out there. We're not doing rentals. We're not doing maintenance. We're just processing payments. We are just a bank. And people are like, oh, this don't work. I said, well, you wouldn't call Bank of America and tell them you had a leak under your sink? Don't call me. That's it. We are just a bank. We're just processing payments. Yes.
When you get in that situation and they're behind, what, as far as a payment, is it like certified check at that point?
So you just opened up another can of worms of a story I'm going to tell you. So yes. So typically when they're behind, we want cash. We definitely wouldn't take a check. Most of the time we would take certified payment, but generally cash. I had a house, Peregrine Street, right, North Ridge, right behind Haynes. This is years and years ago. I don't even have that house anymore. So the person was being evicted, and we went there with the sheriff, and at the door, they gave us like $4,000 in money orders, 500, 500, 500, 500, 500, 500. Anyway, so we canceled the eviction, went about our day, deposit the money orders, life's on, good, you can stay. Well, as soon as we left, they called and put stop payments on all the money orders and reported them as lost. Pissed me off because I'm like, you want certified funds, you figure it's certified, it shouldn't be an issue. Well, they called the bank and reported the money orders as lost, and I called, I said no, and I went through everything and they said no, they were reported as lost, there's nothing we can do. So now I canceled the eviction, you can't just redo it again, I have to go through the whole process again. It gets worse. So I know we're way off topic, but I'm just going to tell you what happened. So anyway, so about a month later, we finally get the new eviction scheduled. We get to the house, get to the door, open up the door. There's another family in there. They paid $5,000 down to this person. This person ran an ad, $5,000 down, yada, 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 and he rented it to them, took their money and split. And so, yeah, you just brought that up when you talked about certified funds. I was like, oh man, I remember why I prefer cash now. Only on evictions. Move in, I'll take cash all day long. And regular payments, they can pay by check. I'm fine with it. So speaking of cash, we use a system called Pay Near Me. I think I went over that with all you guys. Pay Near Me, and they have a sister company now that Alex uses called AMS Billing, owned by the same company, AMS Billing. And what that is anybody can pay cash to you at any 7-Eleven in the country. And it's not just 7-Eleven, it's also CVS, it's also Ace Cash Express.
What is it called?
Pay Near Me, PayNearme.com. So Pay Near Me, the way it works is you set up your own account, you connect it with your bank accounts, then you put your tenant's information in and you send them a barcode. And so they get their own barcode for each property. They can walk into 7-Eleven with their smartphone, scan their phone, pay the cash. They get a receipt instantly to their phone, and you get an email instantly saying that John Smith paid $1,000 for 123 Main Street, and then the money automatically goes into your bank account. So it's pretty awesome.
What was the other one?
AMS Billing. And so the reason for the AMS, let me just touch on it, is from what I've been told, Pay Near Me is not accepting people now with less than 20 properties or something.
Not at all. Not at all.
So they say not at all. So AMS Billing, so they're probably moving landlords over to AMS Billing. So I'm still with Pay Near Me. I don't know, everybody's told me that. I haven't seen anything firsthand, but I believe you if you tried it. So AMS Billing, same exact thing. It's the same company. I think it even says powered by Pay Near Me on it. So it's the same exact thing. And I love it because on the 5th of the month, all day long, I'm getting emails, Pay Near Me, Pay Near Me, Pay Near Me, and each one is somebody made a payment. And it's no longer people coming to the office. Human nature is a little bit messed up, but people would literally drive, and give you for instance, from Suffolk, drive all the way to my office, drive to 7-Eleven first, get money orders, then come to my office to drop it off. And I would be, not a wise ass, but I'd be like, the mailman will do that for you for like 50 cents. And because that's a long way. I mean, they're driving for an hour, not to mention their gas, their time, and have to get the money orders, which are a couple hundred, 50, 60 cents each or whatever they are, every $500. This eliminates that because they're going to 7-Eleven anyway. They're going to 7-Eleven to get the money orders. Now they go there and instead of getting the money orders and then having to drive to the office, they just make the payment right there. So it works out great for them. I love Pay Near Me. Pay Near Me on the 5th of the month is basically all we see. So evictions. So
Question.
yes.
With Pay Near Me, does it go directly into your bank account?
Yes.
I mean, it's deposited and it's credited to your bank account?
Not instantly. I think it takes like 24 or 48 hours.
Okay, because with AMS, I'm finding that I get an email from them like on the 5th of the 6th, and it says, but it won't be deposited or available to you until like the 12th.
Yeah, so they're holding 6 days. Mine's usually about 2 days, about 48 hours, unless it's over the weekend. Like if they do Saturday and Sunday, I might get it Tuesday or Wednesday. Evictions. So in time, you will have to do an eviction. And people hate that. So let's start there. So people absolutely hate it because, it sucks and you don't want to be the one doing it. And you don't want to be the one putting somebody out and, and this and that. And that's just part of the business. The reality is, if you don't do it, or if you get soft or you feel bad, and I'm not saying to be a cold, mean-hearted person, but think of it this way. If you don't do it, you're working and paying for somebody else to live. And this is what I tell people too, my people. I'm like, I have my own family to support. I can't support your family as well. And that's what you're doing. If you don't go through with it, you're supporting someone else's family. You're working and paying the bills for someone else's family. So you can't do that. So the way the eviction works is after the court process, you'll file a writ. I think it's all 10 days now. It used to be if they didn't show up, you could file right away and do it in 72 hours. And if they did show up, they had 10 days. I'm pretty sure they changed the law now, so everyone's getting 10 days. And then you'll file the writ, and the sheriff will actually come out and meet you and a locksmith at the property. And generally, 99% of the time, the people move out before the eviction. They know it's coming. They got the thing on the door, so their goal is to be out before the sheriff comes. But not every time. Sometimes they're still there. I've had times people answer the door in a bathrobe with a pot of coffee in their hand, like oblivious to the fact that we were doing this. Like, oh, that was today? Yeah, it's today. And so most of the time, though, they'll leave. And then all you do is the locksmith changes the locks. The sheriff will walk through the house to make sure nobody's in there, change the locks, he posts something on the door. If they still have stuff in there, they have 24 hours to get with you to make arrangements to get their stuff out of there. After that 24 hours, everything in there is yours to throw away or do what you want with. And that's basically the eviction process. So we do have one resource for those of you who didn't want to do any of that. So Stacy, who does all my stuff, is doing a lot of people's stuff, and I'm not sure if she's doing everybody's. I'm looking around to see who has SlowFlips. And what I mean by that is she goes to court for me. She's going to court for other people as well. So if you had somebody not pay, you can still send them the late notice. But if they didn't pay by the 12th, then you can send all of that to Stacy, and she's actually filing the courts for you, going to court for you, handling the eviction for you, all of that stuff, so that you don't have to. And the reason we started doing that is because a lot of people have jobs. And if you have a job, it's challenging to have to take off work to go stand in court and then have to take off to go do an eviction. So she's been handling that for, I think she did yours, right, Michelle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's been doing it for most everybody. I'm not 100%, but I keep hearing things, and I'm like, oh wait, she's doing theirs too? So I think slowly that's gotten around to just about everybody. Okay, so city violations. What happens when you get a city violation? This is a good one because it comes up. The city sends you a letter saying the gutter's hanging and you have to have it fixed by Wednesday. It doesn't get fixed by Wednesday, then they send you an appearance thing. It's not in court, but it's to their office. If it doesn't get fixed by then they send you to actual court. And it's actually a criminal charge. It's a misdemeanor charge, even though it seems laughable that that'd be criminal, but that's the way they have it. In the end, it has to be fixed. So whether or not you fix it or the tenant fixes it, it has to be fixed. So I never want to fix anything, and I never want to cross that line to where they don't see me as a lender, then they see me as a landlord. So I never want to do it. So what we try and do is we try and have them take care of it. We send them the letters, we tell them they're responsible, yada, yada, yada. But if they do not or cannot, sometimes they can't. They're just like, I just don't have the money. I can't do it. Well, ultimately, it is still our house. So what I do in that case is I'll say, well, if I can get it done for you and break it up into monthly payments, would that work for you? I put new roofs on houses if I had to. I had one in Timberlake, yeah, it was a homeowners association. Was going on and on and on. You had to replace the roof. You had to replace the roof. And I would send it to them, and this lady's been there a while, but she just didn't have the money. She's like, she was nice and she always paid on time. She was perfect, but she didn't have the money to put on a new roof. And then they started to say they're going to fine us $10 a day until there's a new roof. $10 a day. That's $300 a month. I'm like, it's not going to take long until that's going to be more expensive than the roof was going to be. So I called her and I said, listen, what if we can get the roof done for you and you just pay us an extra $100 a month till it's done? She agreed. That's exactly what we did. I had the roof put on and we just added it to her balance, and every month she made a $100 payment. I've done that several times. Not if somebody wanted to upgrade something, but I will do it if it's mission critical. If it's something that's either going to destroy the house, like a roof or a leaking water heater or something inside the house that's going to destroy the house, or if it's something that the city's involved in and we're going to get fined. Does that make sense? You're going to end up having to do it anyway, so I'd rather do it even though I have to pay for it and have them pay me back. But I always make it so that they're paying for it, because otherwise you cross the line to where you're a landlord again. Because then they're going to be like, oh, he's willing to pay to fix stuff? All right, and they're going to take advantage of that. Does that make sense to everybody? And city violations are a pain in our area, but it's going to come. Cutting grass. There's a new thing, and I've been meaning to, I was going to do a video on this to tell you guys about it. It's only been out maybe 2 months in our area. It's called GreenPal. Has anybody heard of this? It's an app that it's called GreenPal, and it works just like Uber, where you basically put in the address of the house you want cut, and then you get 2 or 3 or 4, how many is it, 3 or 4
They keep coming.
estimates from landscapers, and they're cheap, 25 to 50 bucks, and then you just hit which one you want. They all have reviews on them. They go out and cut it, they take pictures while they're there, you approve that it's been cut, and then the money gets released to them. You don't have to go, because it used to be a pain in the ass, especially when you're only cutting a loan one time, nobody wants it. Because they want a route where they can come every week, but you only want it done once, so that nobody wants to do it. And if they do it, they want to charge you a fortune. And then they want you to meet them out there. All right, I'll be out there at 2 o'clock, can you meet me to pay me? And I'm like, if I got it, I don't want to deal with any of that. When you use this app, it just does it all for you. You just hit the button. It's pretty awesome. For people like us, it's exactly what we've always needed. It's exactly,
Isn't it the buyer's responsibility?
Well, what about when it's vacant? I'm talking about when it's vacant.
Yeah.
When you have a vacant unit, the grass is growing, the city's gonna mow it for you if you don't do it, and they're not gonna charge you $40, they're gonna charge you $400. So yeah, when a property's vacant, you gotta keep up on the grass, but they don't wanna you don't wanna be on a route, because you're only gonna do it once, hopefully, maybe twice. Yes.
I was gonna say, that wholesale thing that we talked about, showed you pictures of, I went back, once coming back from the doctors, and I called the city and just asked a couple more questions, and they said, yes, we're taking care of that. I went back 2 days later, we'll go back to the doctor, they bulldozed the house.
Wow.
This is last week, they bulldozed the house, the garage, left the beautiful trees,
Nice.
but everything's gone.
Wow.
Everything's gone. And so I have a call into the city just now to find out, does that mean they own the land? What are they gonna do with it?
Right, can we buy the lot?
And we found the owner, the son.
The son, I remember you told me, yeah.
Finally found him down in North Carolina.
Well, now they should sell it really cheap.
But technically, he does not, I mean, he owns it on paper that he has, but he technically doesn't, because he owes so much in taxes, and
They'll eventually do an auction.
Yeah, because he said, well, if you buy this house, for $30,000 for me to give you this stuff, he said, I'm gonna have to pay $19,000 in taxes and in fines. So, and I said, well, wouldn't it be better to walk away with $10,000 than to walk away with nothing? And he said, I'll think about it.
That's Virginia Beach, right?
That's
right by the
right
office.
here by
Yeah,
Best
so
Buy.
you could pay more than 30 even, because those lots that would go for even more if he was serious, interested in selling. So let me see where I was. Green Pal. So this is an interesting one. So borrowing the private money. So most of you guys in the room have not borrowed yet, right? You have, Chris, Alex, you have, Andrew, you have, right? Michelle, you borrowed, you used your own money. Well, you did borrow, you're right.
No, I did, yeah.
Yep. So when you borrow the money, let me tell you about how the process works. When you have a house and you find one tomorrow and you're like, okay, I want to fund this, and you call me and say, Scott, I found a house at 123 Main Street. Is there money available? Right now there is money available. So as long as you're within 30 grand. If you say, well, this one I need 35 grand, my answer is going to be, well, you're only going to get 30. You can still get it, but you have to pay the difference. The reason is I don't want to corrupt the lenders. We could probably get a lender to say, oh, I'll do it different, but right now we've had a lot of success staying exactly the same. We borrow $30,000 at 12% for 60 months, which makes it our program, not flexible to change. So when you have a lender, and this just came up 2 different ways, so I'm going to tell you about both of them. It is critically important, in my opinion, the most important thing you can possibly do is pay them on the first every month. Not wait until I have to wait until my tenant pays me, not anything else, but on the first of the month they get paid. We have done this every month since we started with private money, and that is one of the key reasons our lenders want to lend us more, because they know on the first of the month they get a bunch of checks. So I'm going to tell you about 2 situations that happened recently. One of them is one guy, and he pays perfect every month, but he read the paperwork, and if you read the paperwork technically says there's no late fee till the 15th, which is true. There's no late fee. With a mortgage, with rent, you can make it due on the 5th. With a mortgage, it's always 15th, so there's no late fee until the 15th. So he, every month, and he's not doing anything wrong, but he would pay it, they would receive it on the 14th. Well, it annoys the lenders because they're getting everyone's payments on the 1st, and they can't close out their books for the month because they have to wait on this one straggling payment. And so then they're always calling me, and I'm texting him and saying, I'm just checking to make sure you made the payment. He's like, it's not due to the 15th. I'm like, it's due the 1st, but they go late on the 15th. And so anyway, my advice if you're in the private money borrowing is pay them on the 1st every single time, because all they want to do when you pay them on time is loan you more money. It's money in the bank to them, as long as they know it's stable and secure. When you're not getting it stable and secure is when they get nervous about it. The second thing is we had somebody recently and it got worked out. Thank God it didn't come down to it, but we got worked out where they were having a hard time, unrelated to their houses, unrelated to anything else. And I got a message, which was very distressing to me, that said, I'm not gonna be able to make the payments. I'm sending a letter to the lender, letting them know I'm not gonna be able to make the payments anymore. And I was like, I'm like, what do you mean? You can't just not make the payments. If you have a hard time, guess what? Everybody has a hard time, it's okay. It's not a big deal. If you're having a hard time, that's just saying, what are we gonna do? We're having a hard time and we'll work through it. But you can't just say, I've made a decision on my own, I'm not paying the lender anymore. And so it ended up getting worked out. When I called, I was away at the time, and then when I got home and I called, he's like, oh, I got it filled, everything's good, and we're all good to go. So it was a lot of me being stressed out over nothing, but it was just the way it was worded to me. The way it was worded to me was, I'm sending a letter to the lender and telling him I can't make the payments anymore. And I kind of freaked out because one of the things I pride myself on is I raise money constantly, and I'm confidently telling people it's as secure as you can be. And even if he defaulted, it's still 100% secure for the lender, but I would have had to get involved and either take it or offset the amount that they lost. So it's 100% secure, but the reason I'm good at raising so much money is because they can call any lender. There's never been the slightest glitch. People ask me sometimes, well, how many people have ever defaulted? And I like to tell them, 0. How many people have ever been late? 0. We've had none so far. Everything's been perfect. And so it is of utmost importance to me that we stay that way. Not to say you couldn't have a problem. You can get in a car accident tomorrow, lose your job, your bank account got wiped out, whatever happens, happens. But you need to call and be like, okay, this is the situation, what can we do? How can we work it out? Or whatever the situation is. Not just, well, I just decided I'm not paying. And, we have to figure it out and keep it straight. Because one of the things that's making us so strong as borrowers, as a group, is that we have 0 default rate, 0 late. Nothing. We haven't had one person be late one day. We've had this one guy who pays the day before every month, but other than that, not one person has been late. There's been 0 defaults, and I want to keep it that way because that's what makes us strong in borrowing. And right now, we probably have $500,000 or $600,000 available to us right now, but in the end, that's nothing because we're going to need $3 and $4 and $5 million so we can all buy the amount that you want. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes. So it is critically important. When you borrow, payments are on time. And if you have an issue, issues happen. It's not the end of the world, but we need to go over it so we can figure out a plan and get through it. Not just, this is what I decided and I'm moving on with it. So hang on one second. I may have one other green pal we did. All right, I think I covered 90% of everything. So now I want to see what questions do you guys have on SlowFlips. Renee, you're first. I know, I tried. I've been writing down everybody's questions. That's what I was going over. Everybody that's texting me something, I was like, oh, that's a good one. I'll keep that.
So I kind of have a question, I guess, but it's like if you go going into a property or a property is proposed to you, say X amount of dollars, is the city assessment on that property a good gauge to use as to what's the value?
So the question was, is the city assessment a good gauge to use on its value? So my personal opinion is no. However, with SlowFlips, and this is where it's a little iffy, everybody's different in what they want to do. I don't care so much about the value so much as the cash flow. Because I never plan on selling these properties other than the way we sell them. Unless, the only way I'm going to sell them, and I think I've told you guys this before, prior to 2008, bless you, prior to 2008, all these properties we're buying, we couldn't buy properties in Hampton Roads for under $100,000 during the boom. If it goes back that way, and it will, we just don't know when, I'll sell everything. Because right now we're making a 20% return on our SlowFlips. If they go back to $100,000, that's a 5% return. I can do better than a 5% return. So if it goes back to where they're $100,000, I will sell everything. Barring that, I don't really care about their value because as long as I know I can get the $875 that I need, then it doesn't matter to me. What I don't want to do is I don't want to buy a $20,000 property for $20,000. I don't want to buy a $30,000 property for $30,000. So as long as it's 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and I can get it at my 30 or less, I'm more than happy with it. There's some areas, certain areas in Newport News where I have a lot, where their assessments are ridiculously low, but I'm okay with that because that means the taxes are low. So some of them I look at and I'm like, man, this thing's assessed at $36,000 or $44,000, some ridiculously low, but I'm like, hey, let's not argue. We always want to argue to lower the taxes, not raise them, so I'm like, let's leave it be. I'm not selling them anyway. And so I'm going to answer another question. You brought up a good point I didn't address. This is a really good topic right here. When you're meeting with people, when you're meeting about value, this is a good topic I forgot all about going over, and I should write this down while I watch the video. So when you're meeting with people and you tell them it's $89,000, right? Or $79,000, whatever your price is. There's certain people are going to say to you, well, how come it's $79? The house next door sold for $32. The house across the street sold for 40, or is for sale right now for 40,000. You know, and that's a better house than this one. Well, I would buy that one then. That's how I tell them. I say, I would buy that one. Well, I can't buy that one because that's cash only. Well, then I would buy this one. And that's the way I answer it. I always agree with them. I'm like, they're like, well, no, that was a way better deal up the block. That one's way cheaper. I'm just like, well, then I would buy that one. But that one they want all cash for. Well, then I would buy this one. And I put it all in their hands. You know, I'm like, no, if that's a better deal, then I would buy that if I was you. But they want cash for that one. This one's financed. The other thing is when people look up what you spent on the house, and this is really annoying when they do that. When they're like, oh, you know, I looked it up and you only paid $15,000 for it, whatever. First of all, what I pay is none of your business, but you don't want to be argumentative with anybody. But what I paid for it is none of your business. But generally the way I'll answer that is I will say stuff like, well, what it doesn't show you on the sale of the house is the $15,000 a month we spend in marketing to find these properties, or the employees that we pay to go out and service and meet with the homeowners. It doesn't show any of that stuff. This is a business. If you want to go all do that, you can find houses way cheaper than we're selling them for. If you want to do your own marketing and do your own appointments and do everything, you know, just like we do. I said, and I put it back in their hands. You want to get cheaper houses? Guess what? They're not readily available. We work for them. But I never argue with anybody, and don't act like, oh no, that's not what I paid. No, that's what I paid. It is what it is. Yes.
Does the assessment value ever change to what you've actually paid for it?
So she said, does the assessment ever change to what we paid for it? Sometimes it's already there. Sometimes it's way higher. Sometimes it's way lower. It varies all the time. Like sometimes I'll buy a house for 30 grand, and it's one I just recently did. I was telling you guys, I paid 22. It's assessed at 145. Sometimes I can pay 30 for a house, and it's assessed at 50. And people, this is something that we all fall into a trap. I'm going to tell you a trap that we get into in our own brains. And my house that I'm telling you about for 145 is a great example. Got it for 22,000. It's worth 140. It's a good neighborhood. City assessments on 145. I got 5 grand down on it and 1175 a month. 22,000 I paid for it. So then I get a next house I go look at. It's 30,000. It's a normal house like we normally get. City assessed at 69, and I will get 875 like our normal plan. But what am I thinking in my head? Well, that's not as good of a deal as the last one I got. And the reality is, it's still a great deal. But now if you compare it to the other deal. And people do that all the time, and we fall into the same trap ourselves because we start looking at the last deal we did, and it's not as good as the last one we did, but it's still an awesome deal. So you got to look at each deal individually.
But does the price ever go lower for that assessment, or are you going to pay taxes on that high assessment value for the rest of your time owning it?
You'll pay based on whatever it's assessed at. You can fight the assessment. People do it. It's a lot of time and energy, and they win a lot. I've never fought assessments on it. I know people who do try and fight the assessments. But I sold it for the higher price, so I wouldn't want to lower it anyway.
On what do you base that price? So if you bought it for 30 and you say 89,000, I mean, how do you get to that number? What do you use?
So the question was, what do we use to come up with our price? Excellent question. Wish I wrote that one down. I would have addressed it already. So this is an answer that nobody likes that I give. We make it up. We make it up. And it's as simple as that. We make it up. So I've had people tell me, you know, well, that money's not real because you just made it up. And I addressed this earlier. You're right, it's not real. But the interest payments I'm getting every month on that money I made up, that is real. That is real money, and that money can be spent. So yes, we make it up. However, I'll go with this, and I'll tell you, you know, I've done this so many times I even forget stuff as I'm about to say it. The way I've justified a price sometimes. People say, well, how come it's 89,000? How'd you come up with 89,000? I say, well, anything at all, the computer, the tablecloth, your wallet, anything is worth whatever someone's willing to pay for it. Anything. There are pocketbooks, you can go into Louis Vuitton, that's $2,000, or you can go to Walmart and get one for $20. They both will carry all your stuff. It's worth it. Is a Louis Vuitton purse for $2,000 worth $2,000? Absolutely not, in my opinion, but somebody's willing to pay it, so it becomes worth $2,000. Well, the way I address it is I say, exactly that. I say anything is worth what someone's willing to pay for it, and somebody's going to pay $89,000 for this house. It won't be here in a week. So is it worth 89? Absolutely. Someone's going to pay 89 for it. So it's worth 89. That's the way I come up with it. And I believe in that. I'm like, it's worth what someone's willing to pay, and someone will pay 89.
And you're financing it?
And I finance it, yes.
And how many years do you give on that finance?
30 years.
30 years.
30 years. And so this is another, I don't know, it's not a joke, I guess, but I heard and I like it and I use it. I say we don't sell houses, we sell the financing and the house comes with it for free. Yeah, I say we sell the financing because that's really the business we're in. We're in the finance business. We sell the financing, the house comes with it.
And you're basically selling it as it is, and then they can do what it is.
Yep. We've had people put additions on houses, pour driveways, windows, roof, siding, I mean the whole deal. It becomes their house. And I like when they do that because they're gonna stay forever and that's what I want. I don't want the house back, I just want the monthly payment. My ideal life is when on the 5th of the month, I got 112 payments and I don't hear from anybody until the 5th of next month when there's more payments coming in. I don't want to deal with anything in between. Hang on one second.
So now, exactly what is the document that you are doing?
It's a contract for deed.
Contract.
Yep, and then we will give them to you. It should be on the membership site. If you've logged in, it should be on the membership site, but it's a contract for deed. If not, just tell me and I'll email it to you.
So have you ever had somebody finish paying off their house?
So finish it as in 30 years? No, but refi it, yes. I've had people sell them and I've had people refi.
Okay.
So yes, it's happened, and where they want to sell. We had one, especially from the boom. I did some in Suffolk, real cheap houses, and I bought them from, pre-foreclosures, and then I slow flipped them, 50, 60 grand, which I didn't really know the market out there because the market's a little weird anyway sometimes. And so when market was coming back, they say, well, they listed it for sale. I didn't even know. And then the agent will call me, we need you to come in and sign because technically I'm still the owner, even though the other person listed it. So I go in and sign and I get, just like a payoff to a bank, I get the amount that they owed me and the difference goes to the seller.
What do you get for the amortization schedule?
Whatever my balance is on the amortization schedule, right?
So then, when you're saying contract for deed, does that mean their name goes on it?
Nope.
No.
So this is the way I explain it to people, another great point. So people ask, well, what's the difference between this and if I bought it directly from a bank? Because I tell them we finance exactly the same way a bank finances, which we do. The only difference is when you buy a house and get financed through the bank, the deed goes in your name and then you pay for 30 years. When you buy a house from me, you pay for 30 years and then the deed goes in your name. Same end result. It's the exact same end result. And that's exactly how I explained it to them, yes.
Has any of the houses you SlowFlipped that they went and remodeled the whole entire thing, then they evicted?
Giving it back?
And then would you turn around and then sell it for the remodeled price?
So what she asked is, has anyone ever remodeled the house and then either defaulted or given it back to you? Absolutely, yes they have. And then could you just resell it for the actual retail price? That's gonna be your call. So I've had it happen, absolutely, where they remodeled the whole thing. Sometimes I go in and I'm shocked. We have one house, we went in and they put an addition on. I didn't realize it until I rewatched the video from when we do videos when we're selling the house. And I went back to the video and I was like, this was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath now. They did an addition on it because I couldn't remember, it was years. But no, I've been able to get more down and more a month, but I didn't put it on the market and sell it. Mostly because I want to keep these houses anyway, so, but you could, absolutely.
When you, talking about making sure you're on time with the late notices and things, do you have letters for that?
Yes.
And also, if Stacy does the eviction process for you, how do you, pay her? How does she?
I don't know, you've used her. What does Stacy charge?
Oh gosh, I forgot. It's whatever the court charges for,
It's like $48.
It's like 40, between 35 and 50, I don't remember. And then Stacy charges 95. And she's the one that goes to court and files everything. And then the sheriff's office will call you and say, we're gonna do this on this date. And you have to arrange for the locksmith. But Stacy has the name of a guy with the locksmith. And then what happened with mine was Alex went there and he met the sheriff there.
So typically, if you're using the guys to fill your properties, they'll go and do the evictions for you. And the reason is, they want to be the first one there anyway to do their pictures and videos so they can start marketing it and be the one to get the sale on it as well.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
Yes.
Does Stacy send out the 5-day notice?
No.
No.
No. We have talked about trying to organize to have almost like property management for SlowFlips. And every time I get deeper into trying to figure it all out, I don't think we have enough to where it'd be worth the extra overhead that would come with it. Or it would cost too much to you guys where it wouldn't be worth it.
Well, Stacy sent me a copy of the letter and you just put it on your laptop.
It's easy, you just change the date, yeah. And
Change the name and the date and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
I sent one out, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, good, send it out on time. I can't stress enough how many times, and I've been screwed so many times. I wish I kept it, but I used to track all of the excuses that we got, and I said someday I want to write a book with all these excuses that we got, because it was amazing how creative people would be. I mean, literally, like, I was in the cab and I left my wallet in the cab. I mean, crazy. I'm like, how do you come up with this stuff? And we would also track how many times their same parent died, or, it was like, because you already used that excuse 6 months ago, and yet they would use it again, and I mean, it was crazy, the stories that you hear, and then I lost it all along the way, and so I don't have the list anymore.
My favorite so far is, that he was waiting for his income tax check return, but he gave the IRS his friend's bank account number to deposit.
Yeah.
And my friend hasn't given me the money yet. I'm like, you're not gonna see that.
So this storm that we just had was on the 6th. So that night on the 5th, me and Stacy were texting and we were saying, you want to place a bet on who's going to be the first person to say they didn't pay because of the hurricane? And sure enough, the next morning, one of our guys, I was going to do it this morning, but the bank was closed. It's already the 6th, so you're already late anyway. And I was going to do it this morning, but the bank was closed, and so I couldn't do the ACH. I'm like, okay, yeah. We knew before the storm even came that somebody, if not multiple people, are going to blame the storm for why they didn't pay their rent. They always do. Anytime there's anything, there's somebody who's going to see it on the news and say, that's why I didn't pay. Who else had a question? I saw another hand up.
Do you just drop it in the mailbox, or you just send it to them, or you deliver it?
Yep, you just drop it in the mailbox. You don't have to send it certified. You just have to swear that you sent them one. So you can just send it by regular mail. He was asking, do you just drop it in the mailbox, or do you have to send certified? You don't have to hand deliver. I know older guys who like to go and tape it on their front doors, and no, we don't. We just drop everything in the mail.
At what time on the 5th? Do you say if your payment's not in by 5 o'clock, then you mail it, or do you do 12?
So that's going to be completely up to you. For me, we do it if they pay anytime. If we get in on the 6th and it's under the door or it's in the PO, as long as if we get it, we still count it. In the end, this is something else, and it's not that we're soft or easygoing. I don't care about their late fee. I don't want it. I have to enforce it. But if they made an effort and they actually paid it and slipped it under the door, I don't care if they did it on the 6th at 4 a.m. If it's before I got into work, I'm fine with it. I'm not trying to get late fees out of people. You have to enforce it because you want them to pay on time, but I don't care about any of that. As long as we got it, it's up to you. You could say it's due by the 5th, by 5 o'clock, or you can do whatever you want. But for us, I just want them to pay their bills. Who else had a question? Chris?
Well, mine's kind of about our current house. Can we talk to you later?
Your current SlowFlip?
The SlowFlip, there's a hole in the roof. And so we're kind of wondering, should we?
Pyramid roofing. For a whole new roof or a hole in your roof or whatever the commercial, no, just remember.
Should we get that? Because when we tell people there's a hole in the roof, a lot of people, well, yeah, we don't know.
So speaking of your new house, I'm going way off topic for a second. You guys ready? And I don't know if you even know this. You may know it, you may not know it. And you may know it, Jerry, you may not know it. Your deal closed and your deal closed.
Wow.
Woo! I didn't know if you guys even knew. Yeah, they both closed, I think, just Friday, so checks should be ready on Monday. So I wasn't sure if you were in the loop or if they were communicating with you or not. Yeah, so that's fantastic. We've been dealing with title issues with several, yours included, but I'm hoping yours is going to be Monday or Tuesday. But we have several. We have like 7 different deals pending that all have some sort of title issue. Your deal's supposed to close Monday morning, hopefully. You don't even know anything about going on with that because I've been handling the title issue with that. Do you know anything about it? There's an unreleased deed of trust from 30 years ago. I should say unreleased. It was released, but they said it was released improperly. So they have the release, but they say like the courts are funny, like the margins could be the wrong size or the numbers could be in the wrong spot on the page. So for whatever reason, it was rejected. And now they got to find the bank from back then to do a new one. However, we do know it's released because we have the release letter. It's just not accepted by the courts. But I believe everybody's still going to close on Monday, and that should move forward. But we have like 7 deals pending. 2 of them just closed. 1 should close Monday morning. Hopefully yours is going to close Monday or Tuesday. But every one of them has had title issues. But we get through them one at a time, working on them. Who else had a question? Did you have one?
You didn't answer my question.
What was your question?
About the roof. It's got a hole.
Do you want to fix it, is what you're saying?
Well, that's what we're wondering, is should we fix it so it's easier to sell?
So that's completely up to you. So my personal opinion is I don't fix anything. However, Sal had one, same type of thing. He had a hole in the roof. And correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, I think he put a new roof on it, right?
Yes.
And then who had one in Hampton? Was it Sal also had one that needed a new roof? And a roofer is the one who ended up buying it. And he put a new roof on it.
The guy who bought the firehouse in St. Louis too.
Yeah, so.
It was Chris.
Oh, Chris's house. I'm sorry, one of our other guys, Chris. He bought a house, and the only thing wrong with it was the roof was messed up, and the guy who bought it was a roofer. Put a brand new roof on it when he got it. Is that going to happen? I couldn't tell you, but it's up to you. If you want to put a roof on it, yes, it's nicer, but the only way I do it is if it's going to destroy the house, and I don't have a choice. But I would advertise it. Roofers, roofers wanted, roofer looking for a house type of thing, and try and solicit for a roofer.
Some of the sites are roofer special.
Yeah, exactly, perfect.
When they call and ask about it, I always tell them though.
Absolutely. So this is a great topic too, about telling them about the hole in the roof. I try and disclose every possible negative thing about the house. Every possible negative thing, for several reasons. One of the big reasons is, if you don't tell them, and you get them over there, they're gonna see it anyway. And now you wasted their time and your time. And suppose you had something you didn't disclose and they didn't see it. Well, they're gonna find out anyway, and now they're either gonna be mad at you or they can't handle it. So I want them to know everything there is bad about it. I do a sheet, we call a dummy letter, or a compliance sheet, where they have to sign off on, I've inspected the property to my satisfaction and I'm happy. You know, everything, I understand that I being me, have not inspected the property and I don't know anything about its condition, a bunch of different things. When I have a house with specific bad things, like the air conditioning unit stolen, or there's a hole in the roof, I may add a line in there, like, I understand there's a hole in the roof and this must be repaired before anyone can occupy the property. And I'll make an initial right next to it, so that they can't state, oh, I didn't know about that. So, because you can customize that and do whatever you want with it.
What do you call that form?
I always called it a dummy letter. It's really a compliance sheet. It's in the papers, you have it in your papers, but I always called it a dummy form, and the reason is, what's that? It's on the website. It was also in the book from the 3-day, and it's also on, I think it's also on the Facebook group now. But the reason I started doing that, and it's always worked for me, so we changed it now to where you initial next to each thing, but I used to call it a dummy letter, and it was actually a letter. It said, to whom it may concern. I understand I'm buying this property and has this condition, and I would write out the whole thing, and I would have them sign it, because inevitably, 6 months, a year, 2 years later, they get amnesia. You never told me I was responsible for repairs. You never told me, and so after hearing that 400 times and realizing that people get amnesia, they only hear and retain what they want to retain, I started having them sign a sheet so that I could say, was this your signature? Where you said, I understand? Anyway, so I had one specific case where it was a girl who was in the Navy, and she had a JAG lawyer call me. And the lady was really rude with me at first, and she's going on and on, and you sold her a house, but she can't do this, and she was going on, and she was really rude with me. And then I told her, I said, well, she signed a paper saying that she understood it. And so the lady, this is how long ago it was, we had fax machines back then. So the lady says, well, I don't have that page, can you send that to me? So I fax it to her. While I'm still on the phone with her, it comes through the fax machine, and I can hear her yelling at the girl now. She's like, is this you? Did you sign this? And then she's yelling at her, and then she's like, I'm sorry we wasted your time, sir. And I was like, oh, thank God I had that page. Because the lady, because, you know, they had their own legal, and she was like all about going after me, but in reality, it was the girl. She was just acting like she didn't know anything about it. And she did. And so we've changed the page now to where they initial next to each line, because I don't want anyone to say, well, I signed it, but I didn't read it. So now you have to initial next to each line, so you can't say you didn't know what was in there. And I think it's really, I've used it in court too. It's not a legal document, but I've used it in court when someone's, because inevitably someone wants to say, I didn't know there wasn't going to be air conditioning. And I said, well, it says right here, this house has no air conditioning. And so I make them initial right next to it, and I brought it into court. And people have said, you know, oh, it's not a legal document. I said, well, it's a document you signed. It's a legal document as much as anything. A lawyer might not have made it. It's in my own words, but it still conveys the idea. So I'm a big fan of it. I'm a big fan of the words that are in it are the same words that are in the contract. Nothing's different, but where a contract they sign on the back, they might initial next to each page. Somebody can say, well, that's not what he told me, or I didn't see that. Here you initial next to, I took out the important lines from the contract and put them one at a time where you initial next to it. That's all it is. It's nothing different that's not in the rest of the contract. I just make them initial next to each one of them so they can't claim they didn't know, which you'll be surprised how amnesia works. Who else had a question? Gotta raise your hand. Dennis, go ahead. You scratched your ear. That's good enough for me. What question do you have? You closed on your deal too. Congratulations. Did you start yet?
Oh yeah.
Congratulations. Yes. I forgot you texted me. Yes. Congratulations. And you're rehabbing it. Yes.
I'm rehabbing. I'm going to be doing over there a lot of rehab.
Nice. Very nice. Text me when you're over there, because that's right near me. So text me when you're over there so I can stop by and visit you. I forgot about that.
Combination.
Yes. Well, no, I want to go when you're there. Send you the combination. Yeah, I love you too.
Stripped out.
You already did?
Oh yeah. Stripped out.
About 80% done.
Nice.
No. Like 65%. But if anybody got any issues with rehabbing, I got a Class A builder that's been in this area for 20.
Don't refer him until you're done with yours.
No, this guy I've known for 30 years, and he's won prizes renovating property over again, where
He's doing yours?
and I've seen this property. I
Nice.
just never thought we would work together, because we've been talking for 10 years. But this is the first time I ever got a deal actually working. And that's the first person that I said we got on board.
Nice. That's
We're gonna
fantastic.
get a team, and we're gonna work with our group. Believe me, David, I've seen his work. I know what the hell I'm doing.
Nice.
I wouldn't even think about it.
Good. I look forward to seeing it. I'm glad I went to see it before. I didn't video. Did you video as you going?
I didn't video.
Well, start now.
Pictures.
I didn't do it when I was over with you.
Pictures. I think I videoed it. I might have videoed it.
So, who else has questions on SlowFlips? Nobody? All right. So then, forgetting SlowFlips, who has questions on anything else?
I think it was like a week or two ago, one of your videos on Facebook, you put up something that you were gonna discuss what like a day in your life looks like for real estate.
I actually have been doing it, not a specific day, but I have been. I started again doing the podcast, and I've been doing it almost on a daily basis, the same type of thing, talking about what it is we're doing on a daily basis, and going over your guys' deals. Actually, the last one I did, all I was doing was ranting about all these title issues we're working on, because I spent probably half my day on Friday, Michelle, with yours, dealing with your title issues, and with everybody. Everybody's got title issues. It's amazing the amount of title issues that we're dealing with right now. And I'm not the only one. I was having beers with a friend of mine last night, and he was saying every deal he has working is the same thing. They're on the title issues. It's just what we're going through right now. It's not the end of the world. It just takes more time and a little bit of phone calls and finesse, but we're getting it done.